He never did catch the name of that song. The buzzing in his ears was ceaseless. Blood rushed to his aching head, and the fever burned every limb and joint sore. When he woke again, the first thing Wei Wuxian saw was not the pitch-black ceiling of the underground cave, nor Lao Wenji's pale and handsome face. Instead, he saw a wooden board with drawings of silly little kissy faces. It was graffiti he'd scribbled on the wooden headboard of his bed at Lotus Pier. He was lying in his own bed. Jia Yanli sat next to him, reading with her head lowered, but when she noticed him awake, her mild brows immediately arched in surprise. "Ashen!" she cried in delight as she put down her book. "Shijie," Wei Wuxian responded in kind. He managed to get up from his bed. His limbs stopped burning, but they still felt weak. His throat was a bit dry as well. Wei Wuxian asked, "I'm back? When did I come out of the cave? Did Uncle Xiang take people to rescue me? Where's Lanchan? Where's Jiangchen?" The wooden door opened. Jiangchen came in with a white porcelain jar hanging from his hand, his voice harsh. "What are you shouting for?" After he spoke, he turned to Jia Yanli. "Sister, the soup that you boiled. I brought it over." Jia Yanli took the jar over and ladled the contents inside of it into a bowl. Wei Wuxian, "Jiangchen, you bastard, come over here." Jiangchen, "Why would you want me to come over? You want to kneel down and thank me?" Wei Wuxian, "You got here after an entire 7 days. Did you want to kill me?" Jiangchen, "You've been killed? Then who's talking to me right now?" Wei Wuxian, "I'm sure it only takes 5 days for you to go from Dusk Creek Mountain to Yunmei." Jiangchen, "Are you stupid? You only counted the time to return and not the time to go there? Let alone the fact that after I got there, I had to lead people and search through the entire mountain for the old banyan tree, then dig open the hole that got blocked up by Wen Chao and his people, and rescue you within 7 days. Where's your gratitude?" Thinking about it, Wei Wuxian realized that he really did forget to count the time needed to get there. He was rendered speechless. It seems that this really was the case. But why didn't Lanchan remind me? He gets irritated enough at the mere sight of you. You expect him to always listen to everything you say? Jiangchen pointed out. Point taken. Having finished ladling out a portion of soup, Jia Yanli delivered the bowl into Wei Wuxian's hands. The soup was piping hot and steamed with a rich, delicious aroma. It had chunks of lotus roots and pork ribs, both slow cooked until the skins were mouth-wateringly soft and pink. Wei Wuxian hadn't eaten for days while trapped in the cave, so he couldn't get back on solid food just yet, making soup perfect. He thanked his Shijie, then hugged the bowl close and started gobbling down the contents. "Where's Lanchan? He was rescued too, right?" he asked as he ate. "Is he here, or did he go back home to Gusu?" "Obviously," Jiangchen replied. "It's not like he is from our family, so why would he come here? Of course he went back to Gusu." "He went back alone?" Wei Wuxian asked. "His home in Gusu?" Before he could finish, Jiang Fengmian entered the room. Wei Wuxian put down his bowl and greeted him aloud. "Jiang Shushu!" "You can remain seated," Jiang Fengmian said. Jia Yanli passed Wei Wuxian a handkerchief to wipe his mouth with. "Is the soup good?" Wei Wuxian didn't take the handkerchief but instead dramatically puckered his lips while squinting happily. "Super good! Don't you have hands?" Jiang Chen scolded. Jia Yanli chuckled as he wiped Wei Wuxian's mouth and chin for him, then cheerfully exited the room with the dirty dishes. Jiang Fengmian sat down where she had been and glanced at the white porcelain pot like he also wanted a taste. Unfortunately, Jia Yanli had taken the bowl with her. "Father," Jiang Chen said, "are the ones still refusing to return our swords?" Jiang Fengmian tore his gaze away from the pot. "They are currently celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Wei Wuxian asked. "Celebrating Wen Chao, who single-handedly slew the Xuan of slaughter," Jiang Fengmian replied. When he heard this, Wei Wuxian almost fell out of bed. "The Wens killed it?" Jiang Chen snorted. "How else did you think the official story would go? Were you expecting them to say, 'You killed it'?" "Shameless Wen dogs spewing nonsense!" Wei Wuxian spat. "It was clearly offered by Lanchan." Jiang Fengmian curled his lips in a soft smile. "Is that right? What a coincidence! The second young master of the Lan family told me you slew it. So, who was it exactly?" "I guess it was a combined effort," Wei Wuxian said, doubtfully. "But he was the one who dealt the fatal blow. All I did was sneak into the owl beast's shell and scare it out. Lanchan waited outside for it all by himself and wore it down for 6 straight hours before it finally died." He described to Jiang Chen and his father the things that had happened during the past few days. Jiang Chen's expression was complicated after he had finished listening. He only spoke a while later. "It's pretty much the same as what Lao Wanji said. So it seems that both of you killed it together. What's yours is yours. Why would you give him all the credit?" Wei Wuxian: "I didn't. I just feel that compared to him, I really didn't do much." Jiang Fengmian nodded. "Well done." He was able to kill a 400-year-old beast at the mere age of 17. It was much more than a well done. Jiang Chen: "Congratulations." The tone of his congratulations sounded quite strange. Seeing how he folded his hands and raised his brows, Wei Wuxian knew that those sour feelings were at him again. Jiang Chen right now must be making a fuss in silence, defiantly asking himself why he wasn't the one who had stayed in the cave to kill the beast. If it had been him, he could definitely also do this and do that. Wei Wuxian laughed. "What a pity that you weren't there as well, or else you'd be able to share some of that credit as well. You'd also be able to chat with me and chase the boredom away. God heavens, sitting face to face with Lanchan these days almost bored me to death." Jiang Chen: "It served you right to be bored to death. You shouldn't have played the hero and you shouldn't have cared for such a hell of a thing. If in the beginning you didn't..." Suddenly, Jiang Fengmian spoke. "Jiang Chen?" Realizing he'd gone too far, Jiang Chen froze for a moment and quickly quitted. Jiang Fengmian did not appear reproachful, but his expression had turned from calm to sullen. Do you understand exactly how you went astray with your words? Xiang hung his head. Yes. Wei Wuxian tried to defuse the situation. He's just letting off some steam, nothing serious. Seeing that Jiangchen's words didn't really match what was in his heart and that he still looked rather indignant, Jiang Fengmian shook his head. Chen, some things shouldn't be so easily said, even when angry. Saying such things demonstrates your lack of understanding of the Jian clan of Yumeng's motto. You did not... A woman's sharp, cold voice came from outside the door. You're right. He doesn't understand. But what does it matter as long as Wei Ying gets it? Like a streak of purple lightning, Madame Yu swept in with a blast of cold wind. She stood about 5 steps away from Wei Wuxian's bed, brows arched high. Attempt the impossible. Well, isn't he the perfect example? She exclaimed. He knows perfectly well what might invite trouble on our family, but he still provokes it. Sangnian, sir, Jiang Fengmian said. Why are you here? Madame Yu, what am I doing here? What a joke that I am asked of such a thing. Secretary Jiang, do you still remember that I am also the leader of Lotus Spear? Do you still remember that every inch of the earth here is my territory? Do you still remember between the one lying there and the one standing here, which one is your son? Such questions he had heard countless times throughout the years. Jiang Fengmian answered, Of course I do. Madame Yu sneered. You certainly do. But what does it matter? There's not a single day that Wei Ying will rest until he stirs up some kind of trouble. If I had known better, I would have forbidden him from leaving and made him stay in Lotus Spear. Would Wen Chao really have dared do anything to the 2 young masters of the Lan clan of Guzu and the Jin clan of Lan Liang? Even if he had, it would have been their own bad luck. Who are you to play the hero? Whenever Jiang Fengmian was present, Wei Wuxian was forced to grant Madame Yu face and not utter a single word in retort. But in his mind, he thought, wouldn't dare to do anything to them? Yeah, right. I've made my point, Madame Yu concluded. Mark my words, one day he'll bring disaster on our family. Jiang Fengmian rose to his feet. Let's talk when we get back. Talk about what? Madame Yu snapped. Get back where? I'm speaking right here. I've no guilt on my conscience either way. Jiangchen, come here. Caught between his parents, Jiangchen hesitated for a moment before going to stand by his mother's side. Madame Yu caught his shoulders and pushed Jiangchen in front of Jiang Fengmian for him to see. Secretary Jiang, it seems there are some things that I must clarify. Take a good look. This one is your son by blood, the future master of Lotus Spear. Even if you can't stand the sight of him because he came from me, his surname is still Jiang. I refuse to believe you haven't heard the gossip that after so many years, Secretary Jiang is still obsessed with a certain Sunrin and sees his old friend's son as his own. Everyone speculates whether Wei Ying is your... Secretary Jiang, it seems there are some things that I must clarify. Take a good look. This one is your son by blood, the future master of Lotus Spear. Even if you can't stand the sight of him because he came from me, his surname is still Jiang. I refuse to believe you haven't heard the gossip that after so many years, Secret Xiang is still obsessed with a certain Sunrin and sees his old friend's son as his own. Everyone speculates whether Wei Ying is your Yuan. Jiang Fengmian barked. Madame Yu shouted right back. Jiang Fengmian, do you think raising your voice changes anything? Oh, I know you! They left, still arguing. Madame Yu's furious voice only grew progressively louder as they departed, and Jiang Fengmian argued back as well, forcibly suppressing his temper. Jiang Chen stood rooted to the spot, stunned. After a long moment, he shot Wei Wuxian a look and turned to leave as well. Jiang Chen! Wei Wuxian called after him. Jiang Chen didn't respond, already hurrying toward the veranda. Wei Wuxian had to roll out of bed to chase after him, lugging his stiff, sore body all the way. Jiang Chen! Jiang Chen! Jiang Chen kept walking onward with his head down. Wei Wuxian flew into a rage and pounced on him, seizing him by the neck as he did. Answer me if you hear me. You're looking for a fight? Get the hell back to bed and stay there. Jiang Chen yelled. Nope. We gotta clear the air and set things straight. Wei Wuxian said. Don't you believe any of that nonsensical bullshit? Jiang Chen spoke coldly. What messed up nonsense? Wei Wuxian. Those things dirty your mouth even if you just say them. Both of my parents are real people in this world. I don't want others assigning me to other households. He put his arm around Jiang Chen's shoulders and dragged him over to the veranda railings to sit down. Let's talk openly instead of bottling up these awkward feelings. You're Jiang Shushu's son, the future head of the Jiang clan. Of course Jiang Shushu will be stricter with you. Jiang Chen regarded him askance. But I'm different, Wei Wuxian continued. I'm someone else's son. My mom and dad were both good friends with Jiang Shushu, so of course he's got to be nicer to me. You understand this logic, right? Jiang Chen humped. He's not strict with me, he just doesn't like me. Who doesn't like their own son? Stop imagining things, Wei Wuxian argued. I'll beat every single one of those rumor-spreading gossip hounds when I see them. Beat them so hard their own moms won't recognize them. It's true though, Jiang Chen persisted. He doesn't like my mom, and so by proxy, he doesn't like me either. This was difficult to rebut. The entirety of the cultivation world knew that Third Lady Yu had cultivated together with Jiang Fengmian when they were young. Jiang Fengmian's character was gentle, yet Yu Ziyuan's personality was harsh. The two didn't share too many interactions. Thus, although their backgrounds matched, nobody associated the two as a pair. Later, Sangsa Sanren came from the mountains, passed by Yumeng, and happened to become friends with Jiang Fengmian. They had even night hunted together on multiple occasions. Both thought highly of each other. People supposed that it was very likely for Sangsa Sanren to become the next mistress of Lotus Spear. However, soon afterward, the Meishan sect proposed an alliance through marriage to the Yumenjian sect. While the sect leader of the Jiang clan at the time was quite interested in this union, Jiang Fengmian was not inclined to agree. He disliked Yu Ziyuan's character and personality and did not think the two of them would make a good match. He politely declined the proposal many times, but the Yu clan of Mei Shan exerted tremendous pressure on him from multiple angles. He was young and unestablished at the time, and soon after, Zhang Zishan became cultivation partners with Wei Changse, Jiang Fengmian's most loyal servant. The two left to travel faraway lands, and Jiang Fengmian finally admitted defeat. Although Jiang and Yu were married, they had ever since been a grudging couple. They had always been living apart and held the most disagreeable of conversations. Aside from the strengthening of their sect's powers, nobody knew what other benefits they had attained. The founder of the Yumenqian sect, Jiangqi, was born a rock cultivator. The ways of the sect were honest and unrestrained. Madame Mu's manners were the exact opposite, and both Jiangshan's looks and personality took after his mother. He hadn't ever been to Jiang Fengmian's liking. Since birth, he taught him in many ways, yet he still couldn't change, which was why Jiang Fengmian had always seemed as though he didn't favor him too much. Jiangshan pulled Wei Wuxian's hand away and stood up, letting out his anger. I know that I don't have the personality he likes, that I'm not the heir he wants. He thinks that I don't deserve to be the sect leader, that I don't understand the motto of the Jiang sect, that I don't have the air of the Jiang sect in me at all. Those are all true. He raised his voice. You killed the Xuan of Slaughter together with Lao Wanji, bathing in blood. How great is that? But what about me? He punched his fist into a pillar in the hole, clenching his teeth. I have also been running around for days, completely exhausted, with not 1 second of rest. What do the family precepts matter? Wei Wuxian countered. Do we have to follow them just because they exist? Look at the precepts of the Lan clan. There's over 3,000 of them. If you obey every single one, how will you live? He hopped down from the wooden railing. And does a family head have to exemplify every family trait? Obey every family precept? The Jiang clan of Yunmeng has had so many family heads in its history. I refuse to believe they were all the same. Even the Lan clan of Gusu produced an unusual case like Lang Yi. But who dares deny her strength and position? Who dares not count her among the renowned cultivators of the Lan clan? Who could deny her killing code technique? Jiangchen was quiet, but he seemed to have calmed down a little. Wei Wuxian put an arm around his shoulders again. When you become the family head, I'll be your subordinate. We'll be just like our fathers. Who cares about the twin shades of Lan? Our Yunmeng has twin heroes. So, just shut up. Who said you're not worthy of being family head? No one's allowed to say that. Not even you. Say it and you're asking to get beat. Jiangchen snorted. In your current state, who are you gonna beat? He smacked Wei Wuxian's chest, while the brand had already been treated with salve and bandaged. It still hurt to have it smacked so suddenly. Wei Wuxian roared, Jiangchen, you're dead! Jiangchen dodged his strike. Now you're in pain. Why did you play the hero then? Serves you right. That'll teach you. Was I playing the hero? The situation forced my hand. I acted before I thought. Wei Wuxian countered. Stop running and I'll spare your little life. I gotta ask you something. There was a perfume sachet stuffed in my belt, an empty one. Have you seen it? The one Mian Mian gave you? Jiang Chen asked. Nope. Wei Wuxian let out a disappointed noise. What a shame. I'll ask her for another one next time. Jiang Chen frowned. You're at it again. You don't really like her, do you? The girl just looks fine, but it's obvious that she doesn't have much background. Maybe she isn't even a disciple. She seems like the daughter of a servant. Wei Wuxian. What's wrong with servants? I'm also the son of a servant, aren't I? Jiang Chen. How can you compare to her? Whose servant is like you, having your master peel lotus seeds for you and boil your soup? I didn't even get to have some. Wei Wuxian. If you want some, just ask Shijie to cook you more. Right. We were talking about Lanchan. Did Lanchan not leave a message for me? Has his brother been found? How's the situation at his sect? Jiang Chen. You expected him to leave you a message? You're lucky that he didn't leave you with a stab. He went back. Lan Shichen hasn't been found yet. Lan Qiren is exhausted from working. Wei Wuxian. What about the Lan sect's leader? How is he? Jiang Chen. He passed away. Wei Wuxian paused. He passed away? All of a sudden, Lao Wenji's tear-streaked face, reflecting the firelight, flashed within his mind. He blurted out, How's Lanchan? How else could he be? Jiang Chen said. He went back home. Father offered to send escorts with him, but he declined. Judging by how he looked at the time, he probably saw it coming. After all, with things as they are now, no one's family is faring better than anyone else's. The two sat back, down on the railing again. So, what's going on with Lan Shichen? Wei Wuxian asked. Didn't the ones burn their library pavilion? The Lan family managed to salvage some of their tens of thousands of ancient scriptures and musical scores. What they could save was probably handed to Lan Shichen so he could run off and protect it. Otherwise, everything would be gone. That's what everyone is guessing. Wei Wuxian gazed at the sky for a moment, then commented, Disgusting. Yeah, Jiang Chen agreed. The winds are disgusting beyond belief. Wei Wuxian started to run his mouth. How long are they going to keep this up? We have so many clans. Can we not just form an alliance and... Just then, a chorus of footsteps approached. A group of boys in light training robes dashed across the long veranda like monkeys, shouting as they ran. Da shi Xiang! Liu Shidi cried in delight. Da shi Xiang, you've been resurrected! Hey! What do you mean resurrected? Wei Wuxian was indignant. I was never dead. Da shi Xiang, we heard you slew a huge 4-century-old Yao beast. Is that true? Were you really the one who killed it? What I want to know is whether it's true that you didn't eat for 7 days? You haven't secretly been studying in India behind our backs. How big was the Xuan of slaughter? Could it have fit in lotus spear? The Xuan of slaughter is just a tortoise, right? Da shi Xiang, you were with Lan Wangji from Gusu the whole 7 days, right? He actually didn't beat you to death? The somewhat solemn atmosphere was instantly shattered into a complete circus. Wei Wuxian's injuries weren't all that serious. It was simply that they hadn't been treated with medicine in a timely manner and he'd exhausted himself on an empty stomach. But he had a strong constitution, so once the brand on his chest had some salve slathered on it, it soon stopped burning. With only a few days of lying around, he was full of energy again. After the incident with the Xuanyuan slaughter at Mount Mushi, the educational office the Wen clan established at Xiang was completely dismantled. The disciples all returned to their respective clans. Wen Chao's side wasn't pursuing the matter further for the time being, and Madame Yu took this chance to give Wei Wuxian a good tongue lashing. She ordered him to never set so much as half a foot out of Lotus Pier's gates. He was forbidden from even rowing boats or swimming in the lake, and could only while away the days shooting kites with the Xiang clan juniors and sect disciples. No matter how fun a game might be, playing it every single day grew dull. After half a month, the boy's interest waned further and further. Wei Wuxian couldn't find it in himself to be excited either, and let his shots sail off wherever they wanted. For the first time ever, he let Jiangchen take first place a number of times. That day, after the last round of shooting had concluded, Wei Wuxian cupped his hands over his eyes and gazed at the remnant rays of the setting sun. "Let's stop and pack up. Head home for dinner." "So early today?" Jiangchen asked. Wei Wuxian chucked his bow away and sat on the ground, looking downcast and frustrated. "I'm not shooting anymore. It's boring. Who plays last? Go on and collect the kites with Liu Shidi." One of the boys said, "Dash Xiang, you're so sly. You always make other people do pickups. What a cheat." Wei Wuxian shrugged. "I've got no choice. Madame Yu won't let me leave the grounds, you know. She's at home right now, isn't she? Who knows, maybe Jinshu or Yinshu are crouched in some corner watching so they can report me at a moment's notice. If I set a toe outside, Madame Yu will flay me alive with a lash." The Shidi, who performed the worst, bantered, laughing as they set off to get the kites. Jiangchen was standing while Wei Wuxian sat on the ground. The two were chatting. Wei Wuxian asked, "Uncle Jiang went out so early in the morning. Why hasn't he come back yet? Would he make it in time for dinner?" In the morning, Jiang Fumian and Madame Yu had an argument again. To call it an argument didn't seem quite right. Madame Yu alone lost her temper, while some of Jiang Fumian's bearing remained throughout the entire exchange. Jiangchen answered, "He's at the Wensek for our swords again, isn't he? Whenever I think that my Sandu might be held in the hands of a Wen dog right now, His face revealed disgust. Wei Wuxian, what a shame that our swords don't have that much spiritual energy yet. If they could sheath themselves, then nobody would be able to use them. Jiangchen, if we cultivate for another 8 years, then maybe it'd be possible. Suddenly, a few boys rushed into the training fields of Lotus Spear, shouting with urgency. Something's happened! Xiang! Xiang! Something's happened! These were the Shidi who had gone to fetch the kites. Wei Wuxian jumped up. What's wrong? Jiangchen, where's the youngest one? Why is there one missing? It was true. The youngest Shidi was the one running in front of everyone when they had left, and now he was nowhere to be seen. One of the boys panted, "Our Shidi was taken away." Taken away? Vaibhushan picked up his bow as well. Weapon in hand, he asked, "Who took him? Why was he taken away?" The boy answered, We don't know why they took him." Xiang was anxious as well. "What do you mean you don't know?" Vaibhushan, "Nobody worry. Tell us clearly." The boy, When we were getting the kite went over there, really far away. When we went over, we saw a few dozen people, all from the Wen sect, wearing their uniform. There were disciples and servants. The one leading them was a young woman. She's holding a kite in her hand, and there was an arrow on the kite. She asked us whose kite it was when she saw us. Another boy continued, "The kite was our youngest Shidi's, so he said it was his. Then the woman suddenly got angry and shouted, 'How dare you!' And then she told her people to take him away." Vaibhushan, "Just like that?" The boys nodded. "We asked her why they were taking him away, and the woman kept on saying that he committed treason and had hidden motives, and she ordered her people to detain him. We couldn't do anything about it, so we ran back." Xiang cursed. "They don't even have a reason for taking him away. Just what does the Wen sect want to do?" "Yeah, there's just no reason." Vaibhushan, "Nobody talk. The Wen sect people could be knocking at our doors every second from now. Don't let them hear anything we say that could be used to hold against us. Let me ask you, the woman, was she not wearing a sword? Does she look kind of pretty with a mole above her lips?" The Shidi, "Yes, that's her." Xiang spoke with hatred. "Wang Liangjiao, that." Suddenly, the cold voice of a woman came. "Why the noise? Can't I have just one day of peace and quiet?" Madame Yu strode over with her flowing violet robes. Jinshu and Yinshu were still armored, following behind her, one on the left and the other on the right. Jiang called, "Mom, the Wen sect people are here. Our youngest Shidi was taken by them." Madame Yu, "You all were shouting so loudly that I heard everything from inside. So what? He was taken away, not killed, and you are already so worked up? Are you still what a future sect leader should be? Calm down." She then turned to face the main gates that stood in front of the drilling grounds. Over a dozen Wen cultivators filed in, all dressed in blazing sun uniforms. From behind the cultivators, a woman in colorful robes sashayed into the grounds. The woman's figure was graceful. Her features were enchanting as well, with amorous eyes, fiery lips, and a small black mole above her lips. She was quite an outstanding beauty. Yet, clad in rings and rings of jewelry, she seemed as if she wanted to clothe herself in the entire jewelry shop and all of the passion that her lover gave her. It really diminished her charm. This was Wang Liangjiao, who had been stricken by Vaibhushan so hard that she rushed up blood back in Chizhen. Wang Liangqiao smiled. Madame Yu, I'm here again. Madame Yu displayed no expression, as though she felt that saying anything extra to her would dirty her mouth. Wang Liangqiao walked down the stairs of the main gates. Only then did Madame Yu speak. Why did you take a disciple of my Yumenjian sect? Wang Liangqiao. Take? You mean the one I took outside? That'd be a long story. Why don't we take our time to talk about it after we sit down inside? A servant, without neither notification nor request, walked through the gates of another sect and demanded without any hesitation to go inside and talk about it after they sat down inside. Madame Yu's face grew colder. The finger on her right hand that wore the silver ring of Xiang twitched a few times. On the back of her hand, veins had slightly risen from her fair skin. She questioned, Talk about it after we sit down inside? Wang Liangqiao. Of course. I didn't have the time to come have a seat inside the last time I came to give out orders. Please. Hearing the word orders, Jiangchen snorted coldly. Jinchu and Yinchu's expressions also seemed angered. However, Wang Liangqiao was still a favorite of Wen Chao's side. At the moment, they couldn't offend her. And so, although Madame Yu's face was covered with ridicule, her tone dripping with sarcasm, she still replied, Sure then. Why don't you go inside? Wang Liangqiao gave her a smile. She really did walk inside. However, although she said she had wanted to sit, she didn't sit at once. Instead, she sauntered with curiosity around Lotus Spear in a circle, putting her opinions everywhere. Lotus Spear really is quite nice. It's so big. It's just that all of the houses are a bit old. All of the wood is black. The color is so ugly. It's not bright enough. Madame Yu, you aren't a good mistress at all. Don't you know to decorate the place a bit? Next time, hang up some more red curtains. It'd only be prettier that way. Walking along the path, she pointed around as if it was her own back garden. Madame Yu's brows twitched so much that Wei Wuxian and Jiangchen thought she could kill someone any moment from now. After they had finished the tour, Wang Liangqiao finally arrived at the main hall. Without anyone's invitation, she presumed her seat at the head table. She sat for a while. Seeing that nobody was going to serve her, she slammed the table with a frown, demanding, Where's the tea? Although she was enveloped in luster, her mannerisms showed no courtesy at all. She acted like a complete buffoon. Having spent the journey with her, everyone was used to seeing this. Madame Yu sat down one seat lower. The wide hems of her robe and sleeves spread out, making her figure appear to be even more slender, her posture even more graceful. Jinchu and Yinchu stood behind her, both wearing light smirks on their faces. Yinchu replied, There is no tea. Get it yourself if you want any. Wang Liangqiao widened her eyes, shocked. Don't the Jian sect servants ever do anything? Jinchu. The Jian sect servants have more important things to do. Nobody ever needs others to do things like pouring tea. They are not crippled. Wang Liangjiao examined them. Who are you? Madame Yu. My personal maids. Wang Liangjiao spoke with disdain. Madame Yu, your Xiang sect really is outrageous. This can't be the case. Even maids dare interrupt a conversation in the main hall. Servants like this have their faces slapped in the Wen sect. Wei Wuxian. As the person saying this, you're a servant as well, aren't you? Madame Yu replied without any hesitation. Jinshu and Yinshu aren't the usual servants. They've been staying with me ever since I was young. They've never served for anyone aside from me, and there hasn't been anyone who can slap them. They can't, and they don't dare to. Wang Liangjiao. Madame Yu, what are you talking about? In a prominent sect, there has to be a clear distinction between the superior and the inferior for it to be not in chaos. Servants should be what servants ought to be. Madame Yu, however, seemed to deeply understand the phrase, servants should be what servants ought to be. Glancing at Wei Wuxian, she happened to concur, responding loftily. That's right. Immediately after, she questioned, just why did you take the disciple of my Yumenjian sect? Wang Liangjiao. Madame Yu, it's best if you draw a clear line between yourself and that brat. He has hidden intentions, but he's already been caught red-handed by me and transferred to wherever he'll be taken care of. Madame Yu raised a brow. Hidden intentions? Jiang Chen blurted. What hidden intentions could our youngest Jidi have? Wang Liangjiao. I have proof. Bring me it. A Wen sect disciple brought over a kite. Wang Liangjiao waved it. This is the proof. Wei Wuxian scoffed. That kite's painted to look like your run-of-the-mill one-eyed monster. What kind of proof is that? Wang Liangjiao sneered in response. Do you think I'm blind? Look closely. Her vibrantly red fingernails jabbed at the kite as she confidently delivered her analysis. What color is this kite? Gold. What shape is this one-eyed monster? Round. And? Madame Yu pressed. And? Wang Liangjiao exclaimed. Madame Yu, have you not noticed yet? What does a round and golden object resemble? A sun. Amid the bug-eyed looks all around, she smugly continued. Of all the ways to design a kite, why must it be a one-eyed monster? Why must it be painted gold? Could he not make it a different shape, a different color? Are you all going to tell me this is a coincidence? I think not. He's obviously doing it on purpose. Shooting a kite designed like this can mean only one thing: sun shooting. He wants to shoot down the sun. This is grave disrespect toward the Wen clan of Xiang. Is that not harboring mutinous intent? Seeing how clever she considered her little performance and forced logic to be, Jiang Chen could hold back no longer. Although the kite is gold and round, it's still far from looking like the sun. How are they similar? It looks nothing like it. Based on your logic, we can't eat oranges either. Wei Wuxian added. Aren't oranges gold and brown too? But I think you've eaten them more than once. Wang Liangjiao sent him a death glare. Madame Yu asked frostily. So you came here this time for the sake of a kite? Of course not, Wang Liangjiao assured her. I came this time to punish someone on behalf of the Wen clan and Wen Ganse. Wei Wuxian's heart stopped for a second. As he suspected, Wang Liangjiao pointed at him. While Wen Ganse was bravely facing the Shan of slaughter on the Mount Mushi, this boy took advantage of his distraction to make impertinent remarks and cause chaos, exhausting Wen Ganse both physically and mentally. He nearly failed and even lost his sword. Listening to her spin false tales and fabricate lies, Jiang Chen laughed out of sheer anger. On the other hand, Wei Wuxian remembered that Jiang Fumian had left early that morning. They purposely waited until this time to come, or they intentionally lured Jian Shushu out. Wang Liangjiao. How lucky! The heavens blessed young Master Wen. Even though he lost his sword, he was able to safely take down the Xuanwu of slaughter. But this brat, we really can't tolerate him any longer. Today, I'm here under the orders of young Master Wen. Madame Yu, please punish him harshly and make him an example to the rest of the Yumenqian sect. Jiang Chen, Mom! Madame Yu, shut your mouth. Watching Madame Yu's reaction, Wang Liangjiao was quite pleased. Wei Ying, if I remember correctly, is a servant of the Yumenqian sect, isn't he? At the moment, without the presence of sect leader Jiang, I'm sure that Madame Yu, you know what be the best to do. Or else, if the Yumenqian sect insists on defending him, it really make people suspect if certain rumors are really true. Sitting at the frontmost seat where Jiang Fumian had always sat, she giggled, covering her mouth. Madame Yu moved her gaze over, face dark. Jiang Chen heard that her words hinted at something. He fumed. What rumors? Wang Liangjiao continued to giggle. You ask what rumors? It has to be those old romantic ties of sect leader Jiang. Seeing that such a woman dared to make up stories of Jiang Fumian right in front of them, flames bursted from within Wei Wuxian. You? However, pain suddenly shot out from his back. His knees couldn't help but buckle. Madame Yu had suddenly stricken him with her whip. Jiang Chen broke out. Mom! Madame Yu had already stood up. Xidian had turned into its whip form, sizzling between her hands of cold jade. She shouted, Jiang Chen, move out of the way, or you'll be kneeling too. Wei Wuxian tried to get up, pushing against the ground. Jiang Chen, move over. Don't worry about me. Madame Yu lashed out her whip again, forcing him back onto the ground. She ground her teeth together. I'd said long ago that you unruly thing, would bring trouble to the Jiang set sooner or later. Wei Wuxian pushed Jiang Chen away. He clenched his teeth as he suffered, unspeaking and unmoving. In the past, although Madame Yu had always come at him with harsh words, she had never truly been cruel to him. The most that he'd been through with 2 or 3 strikes and being grounded. He'd also be let out by Xiang for men soon later. This time, however, he endured dozens of heavy strikes. His back burned and his entire body was numb with pain. He couldn't bear it, but he had to bear it. Today, if the punishment didn't satisfy Wang Liangxiao, the matter at hand would never end. Wang Liangxiao watched with a smile on her face. After Madame Mu had finished, she retracted Zidian at once. Kneeling on the ground, Wei Wuxian's body swung forward, as though he was about to collapse. Jiang Chen wanted to help him, but Madame Mu ordered, "Stand back, don't help him." Jinchu and Yunchu firmly restrained Jiang Chen. Wei Wuxian held on a while longer but then collapsed heavily to the ground, prone and unmoving. Wang Liangxiao was astonished. "That's it?" Madame Mu hummed. "What do you think?" "That's all?" Wang Liangxiao prompted her again. Madame Mu arched her brows. "What do you mean, that's all? What grade of weapon do you judge Zidian to be? He won't recover from the slashing even in a month. He'll feel it for some time." "But he'll still recover," Wang Liangxiao said. Jiang Chen demanded angrily, "What more do you want?" "Madame Mu, this is meant to be a punishment. He must remember this lesson forever and regret his actions for the rest of his life, so he doesn't commit the same wrongs again." Wang Liangxiao lectured her. "If he only suffered a few lashes, he'll be out and about again once he recuperates. What kind of punishment is this? Boys his age never remember the pain once their injuries heal. It doesn't work at all." "What do you want then?" Madame Mu demanded. "Chop off his legs to ensure he's never out and about again?" "When Gonzi is kind," Wang Liangxiao assured. "He would never order something so brutal as chopping off both legs. Just his right arm. Then when Gonzi will say no more about it." This woman was a donkey in a lion's skin. Using Wen Chao as a backing, she was shamelessly out to avenge herself for the blow Wei Wuxian dealt her inside Mount Mushi's underground cave. Madame Mu glanced at Wei Wuxian askance. "Chop off his right arm?" "That's right," Wang Liangxiao replied. Xu Xiyuan rose to her feet and slowly paced around Wei Wuxian, seeming to be considering the idea. Wei Wuxian was in so much pain he could barely lift his head. Jiang Chen struggled free of Jinchu and Yunchu and fell to his knees to cover Wei Wuxian with his own body. Mom, please don't! Things aren't at all like she said!" Wang Liangxiao raised her voice. "Jiang Xiaoganzi, are you accusing me of fabricating?" Wei Wuxian lay prone on the ground, unable to even flip himself over. "Fabricating? What's fabricating?" Then it suddenly came to him. "You mean fabrication? This woman used to be the handmaid of Wen Chao's wife. She's never been educated and her vocabulary is limited. In going about feigning literacy, she used an unfamiliar word and mispronounced it while pretending to understand what she's babbling about." The current situation was dire, but in times like these, the human mind becomes unable to focus amidst the chaos and the imagination runs wild. So once the woman's gaffe clicked for Wei Wuxian, he found it quite funny. Wang Liangjiao didn't know that she had made a fool of herself at all. Madam Mu, think this through. The matter at hand, the Wensec will definitely get to the bottom of it. With his hand chopped off for me to bring back, it'd be good enough an explanation, and the human sect would be fine. Or else, the next time when young Master Wen asks, things wouldn't be so simple anymore. A cold light flashed through Madame Mu's eyes. Her voice was eerie. Jinshu, Yinshu, quick! Go close the doors. Don't let the others see the blood. As long as they were Madame Mu's orders, Jinshu and Yinshu followed all of them. Both kneeled on the ground, answering, Yes. They shut the doors to the main hall tight. As Wei Wuxian heard the sound of the doors closing, the light on the ground disappeared as well. Wei Wuxian felt fear arise. Don't tell me that she really is gonna chop off my hands? Jiang Chen was scared to death. He hugged his mother's leg. Mom! Mom! What are you doing? Please don't cut off his hand! After the fear had passed, Wei Wuxian clenched his teeth. His heart set. Let it be, then. If it's in exchange for the peace of this act, a hand is just a hand. Fuck, if worst comes to worst, I'll just practice the left-handed sword from now on. Wang Liangjiao clapped her hands together. Madam Mu, I knew that you must be the most obedient subordinate of the Jishan sect. Somebody hold this brat down. Madam Mu, there's no need. Jinshu and Yinshu walked over. Wang Liangjiao. Oh, so you're having your maids hold him down. That worked too. Jiang Chen. Mom, listen to me. I beg you. Don't cut off his hand. If father knew... It was all fine until he had mentioned Jiang Fengmian. The second he mentioned him, Madame Mu's expression changed at once, shouting, Don't talk to me about your father. What could happen if he knew? Could he kill me? Wang Liangjiao beamed. Madam Mu, I just admire you so much. It looks like that from now on, in the supervision office, we'll get along well as well. Madame Mu pulled back her leg and her violet dress hem, which Jiang Chen had been clutching. She turned around, brows raised. Supervision office? Wang Liangjiao smiled. That's right, supervision office. This is the second matter that I came to the Yumenjian sect for. The new supervision orders that came from our Jishan sect, calling for supervision offices to be built at every city. From now on, I declare that Lotus Spear is the supervision office in the Wen sect at Yumeng. So that was why she kept on going about Lotus Spear as though treating it as her own residence. So she really did already take Lotus Spear as her office at Yumeng. Jiang Chen's eyes were red. What supervision office? This is my sect! Wang Liangjiao scrunched her brows. Madam Mu, you must discipline your son properly. Since hundreds of years ago, all of the sects have been under the Wen sect, in front of the Wen sect's envoy. How could he say things like your sect and my sect? I had originally been hesitating. Lotus Bay is so old and it had brought out quite a few dissidents, so could it really take on the heavy responsibility of being a supervision office? But seeing how obediently you followed my orders and how your personality suits my taste, I've still decided to give this great honor to. Before she could finish, Madame Mu gave her an echoing slap. The slap was shocking both in sound and in force. Wang Liangjiao was slapped with such force that she spun around a few times before finally falling to the ground. Blood gushing out of her nose, she widened her eyes. The few of the Wensek's disciples within the main hall were alarmed at once. All of them unsheathed their swords. With a wave of Madame Mu's hand, a brilliant ring of purple light shot out of Xiang. A large portion of the disciples collapsed immediately. With all her elegance, Madame Mu walked toward Wang Liangjiao and looked down on her. Suddenly, she bent down and grabbed Wang Liangjiao's hair. Pulling her up, she gave her another slap of wrath. "How dare you!" She had been enduring this for too long. Right now, her face was twisted as she advanced toward Wang Liangjiao. Face swollen, Wang Liangjiao began to scream. Without holding back at all, Madame Mu gave her another slap, cutting off her ear-piercing scream. She shouted, "You look at its owner before you hit a dog. You barged into my sect and you want to punish my people in front of my face? What a thing you are! How dare you be so undisciplined!" As she finished, she threw Wang Liangjiao's head to the side. Like she considered it dirty, she took out her handkerchief and wiped her hands. Jinchu and Yunchu stood behind her, faces bearing the same smile of disdain as she bore. Wang Liangjiao covered her face with shaking hands, cheeks stained with tears. How dare you do something like this? Neither the Jishan sect nor the Yinchuan sect will let you go. Madame Mu tossed the handkerchief on the ground before kicking her over, cursing. "Shut up, such a scum of a maid. My Meishan sect has roamed the cultivation world for hundreds of years, and I've never heard of some Yingchuan sect. Of which gutter did this menial sect crawl out? Is it full of things like you? You mentioned the superior and the inferior before me. Then let me teach you what superiority and inferiority means. I am the superior, you are the inferior." On the side, Jiangshen was already in the middle of helping Wei Wuxian up. Watching the scene unfold, both of them were shocked, speechless. Madame Mu looked behind her. Jinchu and Yunchu understood. Both unsheathed a long sword and circled the hall. With fast, merciless moves, they had killed all of the Wensek's disciples within seconds. Wang Liangjiao saw that it'd soon be her turn. She threatened with the last of her strength. You think that you can silence me? You think young Masterman doesn't know that I'm here today? You think that he'll let you go after he knows about this?" Yinshu sneered. "You sound as if he has let us go already." Wang Liangjiao. "I'm close to young Masterman. I'm the closest one. If you dare do anything to me, he'll..." Madame Mu gave her another slap. She mocked. "He'll what?" She mocked. "Chop off our hands and our legs? Burn down our residence? Send people to raise lotus pay to the ground? Establish an overwatch office here?" Jinchu approached with sword in hand. Fear filled Wang Liangjiao's eyes. She cowered and scrambled backward, kicking out her legs as she shrieked. "Men, help! Wenchuolu, save me!" Madame Mu's expression hardened. She stomped her heel down hard on Wang Liangjiao's rest and drew her sword. Just as the blade was about to come slashing down, it was suddenly struck back with a clang. Wei Wuxian and Jiang Chun turned their heads to look. The doors to the hall blew thunderously open as a tall, strapping man broke it through. He was dressed all in black and wore a sullen expression. It was Wen Chao's personal bodyguard, the one with remarkable cultivation, Wen Chu. With her sword knocked out of her hand, Madame Yu held Xidian level with her chest. "Co-melting hand?" Wen Chu coldly returned the courtesy. "Purple spider?" Madame Yu's foot was still firmly planted on Wang Liangjiao's wrist. The latter's face was contorted with pain, and tears and snot flowed freely as she wailed. "Wen Chu, hurry up and save me!" Madame Yu snorted. "Wen Chu? Co-melting hand? Isn't your original name Chao Chu? Your surname clearly isn't Wen, and yet you insist on changing it at any cost? Look at the lot of you, falling all over yourself to do it. Is a Wen dog's name that valuable? Forgetting your roots and turning your back on your ancestry? How laughable!" Unmoved, Wen Chu replied stoically, "Each for his own master." The two of them had just exchanged a few words, yet Wang Liangjiao began to scream again, unable to bear it. "Wen Chu, don't you see what I look like? Why are you chit-chatting instead of killing her right now? Is this how young Master Wen told you to protect me? Watch out, or else I'll denounce you." Madame Yu ground her heel into her wrist, and Wang Liangjiao screeched in pain and burst into more tears. Wen Chu wrinkled his brow. It was on Wen Ruohan's orders that he protected Wen Chao, whose character he disliked to begin with. How could he have known that things would only get worse from there, with Wen Chao assigning him to protect Wang Liangjiao? The woman was pompous, boastful, and stupid, not to mention vicious, all of which incurred Wen Chu's displeasure. But, unhappy as he was, he couldn't defy Wen Ruohan and Wen Chao's orders and crush her like an ant. Fortunately, Wang Liangjiao detested Wen Chu in equal measure and ordered him to only follow her from afar. He was not permitted to show himself before her unless she ordered him to, out of sight, out of mind. But the woman was now on the verge of losing her life, and Wen Chao would definitely fly off the handle and make him pay if he stood by and did nothing. And if Wen Chao wouldn't let the matter drop, neither would Wen Ruohan. "Pardon my offense," Wen Chu said. "Nothing but posturing." Madame Yu scoffed. Xidian whirled toward Wen Chu, who raised his large hand and seized it without the slightest concern. In its whip form, Xidian coursed with currents of spiritual power. Its intensity and lethality were under the absolute control of its master, and Madame Yu had long burned to slaughter every last one of these Wen dogs. Furthermore, she was deeply apprehensive of Wen Chu. The current of spiritual power that hurtled at him was thus deadly fierce, and yet Wen Chu seized it so effortlessly. Xidian had never encountered such an opponent in all its years of existence. Seeing the whip be seized, Madame Yu stalled for a fleeting second, and Wang Liangjiao used this chance to scramble away. She fumbled a signal flare from her robes and shook it twice. A flash of fire shot forth from the tube with a sharp whistle and broke through the wooden window to explode in the sky. She fished out a second, then a third. With her hair disheveled, she rumbled, "Here, here, come over here, all of you, come here!" Gritting his teeth against the pain, Wei Wuxian gave Xiang a shove. "Don't let her send off any more signals!" Xiang let go of Wei Wuxian and rushed to chase after Wang Liangjiao. But Wen Shuliu rushed Madame Mu in that moment, and it looked like his blow was going to land. "Mom!" cried Xiang. He immediately abandoned Wang Liangjiao and threw himself over. Wen Shuliu didn't even look back as he struck out with his palm. "Not by a long shot." The blow hit Jiangchen's shoulder and blood burst from his mouth. The greyish-blue night sky was filled with resplendent light and shrill whistles. Wang Liangjiao had set off all the signal flares. Seeing Jiangchen injured, Madame Mu howled with rage. In a split second, the light of Xidian's spiritual power amplified enormously, flaring so bright it was dazzlingly white. The sudden discharge from Xidian flung Wen Shuliu hard against the wall. Jinshu and Ninshu each drew long whips sizzling with electricity and began to engage him in combat. The handmaids had been very close to Madame Mu ever since they were young and trained under the same teacher, so their combined attacks were a force to be reckoned with. Using the time this bought her, Madame Mu lifted the immobilized Jiangchen and Wei Wuxian, one under each arm, and dashed out of the hole. There were still many sack disciples gathered in the drilling grounds. Madame Mu barked, "Fall into formation and gear up!" With the two in her hands, she rushed onto the pier. The pier of Lotus Pier always had a few small boats docked in it to be used by the Jiansak's disciples for roaming within the water. Madame Mu tossed them onto the boat. She jumped into it herself as well. Holding Jiangchen's hand, she helped him regain himself. Jiangchen had only coughed up a mouthful of blood. His injuries weren't too severe. He asked, "Mom, what do we do?" Madame Mu, "What do you mean, what do we do? Can't you see yet? They came here prepared. Today's fight couldn't have been avoided. Soon afterwards, there'll be herds of these wen dogs arriving. Leave first." Wei Wuxian, "Then what about Shijie? Shijie went to Mission the day before yesterday. If she comes back..." Madame Mu glowered. "Shut your mouth! It's all because of you, little..." Wei Wuxian could only stay quiet. Madame Mu took off the Xidian ring that she wore on her right hand and put it on to Jiangchen's right index finger. Jiangchen was shocked. "Mom, why are you giving me Xidian?" Madame Mu, "I've given it to you, so it'll be yours from now on. Xidian has already recognized you as its master." Jiangchen was confused. "Mom, won't you be living with us?" Madame Mu gazed at his face. All of a sudden, she pulled him into a hug. She pressed a couple of kisses into his hair as she held him in her arms. "My dear boy," she murmured. She hugged him so tight it was as if she yearned to turn Jiangchen into a tiny baby once more and stuff him back into her belly, so no one could ever hurt him or tear them apart. Jiangchen had never been hugged by his mother like this before, let alone kissed in such a way. His head lay buried in her chest, his eyes wide in shock. He was at a complete loss as to how to react. One arm hugging Xiang, Madame Yu seized Wei Wuxian by the collar with her free hand, looking like she wanted to choke him to death. "You damned brat!" she hissed through clenched teeth. "Hateful! How absolutely hateful! Look what disaster you've brought on our family!" Wei Wuxian's chest heaved violently, and words failed him. This time he was not forcing himself to endure in silence or mentally grumbling retorts. He was truly rendered speechless. Xiang anxiously asked again, "Mom, aren't you coming with us?" Madame Yu released him at once and pushed him onto Wei Wuxian. She leaped onto the dock. The boat rocked side to side amid the water of the river. Xiang finally understood. Jinchu, Yinchu, all of the disciples, and all of the treasure that Yumenjian sect had passed down from one generation to the next was still inside Lotus Pier, unable to be evacuated within a short period of time. After this, a grim battle would have to happen. As the mistress, Madame Yu couldn't flee, yet she worried about her child. Perhaps selfish, she could only let these two escape first. Knowing the extreme danger that waited after they parted, Xiang was stricken with panic. He stood up and attempted to follow her off the boat, but a current suddenly sparked from Xidian. It transformed into an electric cord that wrapped and bound them both securely on the boat, rendered completely immobile. "Mom, what are you doing?" Xiang cried out. "Stop making a fuss," Madame Yu said. "It will release its grip when you reach a safe place. Xidian will protect you if you encounter any danger along the way. Don't come back. Head straight for Meishan and look for your sister." She then turned and pointed at Wei Wuxian, instructing him sharply. "Wei Ying, heed me. Protect Xiang well. Even in death, you have to keep him safe. Do you understand?" "Madame Yu," Wei Wuxian called out. "Do you understand?" Madame Yu raged. "Save me all your other nonsense. I'm only asking you one thing. Do you understand?" Unable to break free of Xidian, Wei Wuxian could only give a heavy nod. "Mom!" Xiang shouted. "Father isn't back yet. Whatever happens, can't we try to face it together?" At the mention of Jiang Man, Madame Yu's eyes seemed to redden for a moment. After a moment, she loudly cursed. "If he doesn't come back, then so be it. Do you think I can manage without him?" She brandished her sword and cut the rope that tethered the boat to the dock, then gave the side of the boat a heavy kick. This kick, paired with the rapid currents of the river and strong wind, immediately sent the boat drifting out a dozen meters. It whirled around a few times before beginning to sail smoothly and swiftly down the center of the river. Xiang let loose a heartbreaking wail. "Oh, Mom!" He called for her dozens of times, but Madame Yu and Lotus Pier receded further and further into the distance. After the boat had drifted far away, Madame Yu walked back through the main gates of Lotus Pier with the flash of purple robes, long sword in hand. Both Xiang and Wei Wuxian did all they could to struggle free. Xidian did not loosen an inch, even as it began to dig into their flesh from their attempts. Xiang howled like a furious madman as he thrashed. "Why is it not still breaking? Come on, break! Break!" Wei Wuxian had just taken a dozen lashes from Xiang and was still in agony. He knew it was impossible to break free, that it was all in vain. Remembering that Jiangchen had sustained injuries as well, he endured the pain and tried to speak. Jiangchen, calm down. Madam, you might not lose against Co-Melting Hand. Didn't she beat Wen Chulu back earlier? How can I calm down? How? Jiangchen roared. Even if she kills Wen Chulu, that bitch Wang Lianjiao already shut off all those signals. What if the Wen Dog see and send forces to besiege our home? Wei Wuxian knew very well that it was impossible for him to calm down, but there had to be at least one clear head between the two of them. Just as he was about to continue talking, his eyes suddenly lit up. Jiang Shushu! He shouted. Jiang Shushu is back! Sure enough, another vessel on the river was sailing toward them. Jiang Fengmian stood at the bow of the large boat, his robes flapping in the sailing wind as he gazed in Lotus Spear's direction. There were over a dozen Sectisipals milling on deck as well. Father! Father! Jiangchen shouted. Jiang Fengmian had seen them as well and appeared slightly shocked at the sight. One of the Sectisipals took up the oar to approach. Still in the dark about what had just transpired, Jiang Fengmian asked in astonishment, Arching? I? What happened to you two? The boys of Lotus Spear often played weird games. It was a common sight to see them pretending to be bloody corpses sprawled face down in the river. Jiang Fengmian, uncertain if they were in the middle of a new game, didn't realize the gravity of the situation. Jiangchen, however, was so happy he was driven to tears. With panicked urgency, he urged, Father! Father! Free us quickly! That is your mother Xiang, and Xiang knows who its masters are, Jiang Fengmian said. It probably won't allow me to. He reached out to Xiang as he spoke and had only just touched it when it unexpectedly retracted itself obediently. It instantly transformed into a ring and coiled around one of his fingers. Jiang Fengmian promptly froze at the sight. Xiang was a top-grade spiritual weapon that belonged to Yu Yuan, and her will was its first and foremost command. It could acknowledge multiple masters, but in an order of hierarchy, and Madame Yu was undoubtedly its undisputed primary master. She had commanded it to bind Jiangchen until he was safe, which was why Jiangchen could not break free even though he was also one of its recognized masters. It appeared Jiang Fengmian had been recognized as Xiang's secondary master, though there was no telling when that had happened. It had judged them safe in his presence and therefore loosened the binding. But Madame Yu had never said that she let Xiang recognize Jiang Fengmian as its master as well. Finally separated, Jiangchen and Wei Wuxian threw themselves apart and collapsed. What is going on? Jiang Fengmian questioned. Why were you two sitting in a boat bound by Xiang? Although he saw something that could save them, Jiangchen clutched him. Today, the Wensex people were at our sect. Mom had an argument with them and started fighting with the Co-Melting Hand. Mom might be at a disadvantage. Later, there might be even more enemies. Father, let's go back and help her. Let's go. Hearing this, all of the disciples looked shocked. Jiang Fengmian asked, The Co-Melting Hand? Jiangchen, Yes, Father, Before he could finish, a purple light flashed, and Jiangchen and Wei Wuxian were tied up again. In the position that they had been, the two collapsed onto the smaller boat. Jiangchen's face was black. "Father?" Jiang from men. "I'll go back. You two leave. Don't turn in anywhere. Don't return to Lotus Pier. After you reach the shore, try to go to Meishan as soon as possible to find your sister and your grandmother." Wei Wuxian. "Uncle Jiang!" As the shock passed, Jiangchen kicked the side of the boat furiously. The boat kept on shaking. "Father, let me go! Let me go!" Jiang from men. "I'll go back to find third lady." Jiangchen glowered at him. "We can go back and find her together, can't we?" Jiang Fengmian gazed steadily at him. He suddenly reached out. His hand paused in midair for a moment before slowly stroking Jiangchen's head. "Archeng, be well." "Jiang Shushu," Wei Wuxian pleaded. "He'll never be okay if anything happens to you." Jiang Fengmian shifted his gaze over to Wei Wuxian. "Yiling, look after Archeng." He returned once more to his large vessel. Both boats brushed past each other, then drifted further and further apart. Jiangchen screamed in despair. "Dad!" The boat drifted down the current. They didn't know how long had passed before Sidian loosened. It became a silver ring around Jiangchen's finger. The two had been shouting for the whole ride. Their throats were already hoarse. After they had been unbound, they didn't say anything and began to sail back. They didn't have oars, so they paddled with their hands against the flow of the river. Madame Mew said that the lashes he had received wouldn't heal in less than a month. However, right now, Wei Wuxian felt that although where he had been whipped still burned and tingled, it didn't affect his ability to move too much. With the determination of somebody on the verge of death, the two of them paddled as though their lives depended on it. 2 hours later, using nothing but their hands, they finally returned to Lotus Pier. It was already late into the night. The main gates of Lotus Pier were tightly shut, and the area outside was bright with lights. Fragments of moonlight shimmered on the crystalline waters, where dozens of large colored lanterns shaped like 9-petal lotuses floated quietly by the dock. Everything was the same as it had been, and that was precisely what magnified their unease to the point of agony. The two paddled in and stopped when they reached the center of the lake. Their hearts pounded wildly while they sat there in the water. They didn't dare approach the dock, nor did they dare rush ashore to check on the situation inside. Tears welled within Jiangchen's eyes. Both his arms and his legs were shivering. A while later, Wei Wuxian spoke. "Let's not enter from the gates right now." Jiangchen somehow managed to nod. Without making a noise, the two paddled the boat onto the other side of the lake. An old willow tree grew there. Its roots were buried inside the dirt of the shore, but its broad trunk grew sideways along the surface of the lake. Its branches dipped into the water. In the past, the boys of Lotus Pier often walked down the trunk of the willow tree all the way until its tip to sit there and fish. The two stopped the boat behind the weeping trails of the old willow and headed ashore under the cover of the night and the willow's branches. Wei Wuxian, who was used to climbing over walls, tugged at Jiangchen. "This way!" he whispered. Xiang was overwhelmed with terror and alarm. He could barely keep his bearings as he followed Wei Wuxian and pressed close to the wall, creeping low for a moment before silently scaling it. There was a row of sculptures in the shape of based heads lining the top of the wall, which made it a suitable spot for spying. In the past, they were always the ones being peeked at by people who would sneakily scale the walls. But now, they were the ones peeking in. Wei Wuxian craned his neck to look. Immediately, his heart sank. Rows and rows of people stood in lotus pairs, drilling grounds, all wearing blazing sun uniforms with flames embroidered on their collars, lapels, and sleeves. The flames were a glaring, blood-like shade of red. Aside from those who stood, there were also those who lay. All of the people collapsed on the ground had been moved to the northwest corner of the field, piled together without any order. One person stood with their back to the two of them. Head lowered, he seemed to be examining the people of the Xiang sect. They didn't know whether they were alive or dead. With much fervor, Xiang was still searching with his eyes for the figures of Yu Ziyuan and Jiang Fengmian. Wei Wuxian, however, felt his eyes tear up at once. Among the people, he saw many familiar silhouettes. His throat was both dry and in pain. His temples felt as if they had been stricken by iron hammers, while his entire body was cold. He didn't dare think about Jiang Fengmian and Yu Ziyuan any longer. Just as he was about to take a closer look at whether or not the thin boy lying on top was his youngest Shidi or not, the person standing at the northwestern corner with his back to them seemed to have picked up on something and turned around. Wei Wuxian immediately lowered his head along with Xiang's. Although he ducked in time, he still saw what the person looked like. It was a young man about the same age as them. He was tall and thin, with fine delicate features. His jet black eyes were a stark contrast to his ghastly pale skin. Although he was wearing a blazing sun uniform, he did not have an imposing aura about him. If anything, he looked a little too refined and gentle. The particular sun patterning on his robes marked his official rank as one of the Wen clan's young masters. Wei Wuxian's heart jumped into his throat. Were we spotted? Should we make a break for it? Or are we still in the clear? Just then, the sound of delicate weeping rose from within the enclosing wall. Amid the sound of footsteps, a man comforted in a gentle voice. "Stop crying! Your face is all stained!" Wei Wuxian and Xiang were both very well acquainted with this voice. It was Wen Chao. Wang Liangjiao's simpering soon followed. "Will you not like me anymore if my face all stained?" "How could that be?" Wen Chao coaxed. "I like Jiao Jiao no matter what Jiao Jiao looks like." Wang Liangjiao had worked herself up into quite a state. "I was really so scared. Today I really thought that bitch would kill me and I'd never see you again, Wan Gongsi. Wen Chao seemed to have hugged her. "Stop obsessing over it, Jiao Jiao. Everything's over now. Fortunately, Wen Shuliu protected you. Don't bring him up. Wang Liangjiao whined angrily. That Wen Shuliu, I hate him. If he hadn't come so late, I wouldn't have suffered so much. My face still hurts so much. Ow! She clearly was the one who had ordered Wen Shuliu not to flash before her sight and caused herself to get beaten up. Now, though, she was turning the matter upside down again. Wen Chao loved listening to her complain in such a pitiful way. It won't hurt. Here, let me touch it. You don't like how slow he was, but you mustn't challenge his limit. His level of cultivation is really high. My father has said many times that he is a rare talent. I'm still hoping that I can use him for another few years. Wang Liangjiao wasn't convinced. So what? So what if he's a talent? There are so many renowned cultivators, so many talents under sect leader Wang. At least thousands. What could happen if he's gone? She was hinting that Wen Chao should punish Wen Shuliu to appease her anger. Wen Chao chuckled. He might dart on Wang Liangjiao, but not enough so to punish his own bodyguard for a woman's sake. After all, Wen Shuliu had thwarted countless assassination attempts on him. Furthermore, he was a tight-lipped man of few words and would never betray his father, which meant he would never betray Wen Chao either. Such a loyal and powerful bodyguard was a rarity. Seeing that he didn't seem too concerned, Wang Liangjiao added, "Look at him! He's clearly only a mere subordinate under your command, yet he's so arrogant. Back then, I wanted to slap that you-bitch on the face, and he didn't even let me. She's dead already. It's only a corpse. He's looking down on me. So it means that he's also looking down on you, doesn't it?" Jiangxin couldn't properly cling onto the wall, and so he slid down. Wei Wuxian quickly grabbed the back of his lapels. Both of them had tear-filled eyes. The tears rolled down along their cheeks, splashing onto the back of their hands and eventually the ground. Wei Wuxian recalled how Jiang Fumian had fought with Madame Yu before he went out this morning. The last words that had passed between them had not been gentle or pleasant. He wondered if they'd managed to see each other one last time, and if Jiang Fumian had a chance to say even one word more to Madame Yu. Wen Chao was completely unconcerned. That's just him being eccentric, talking about how an honorable person may be killed but not humiliated. He is the one who did all the killing. So what's the point of spouting that scholarly stuff? Exactly. Wang Liangjiao agreed. What a hypocrite! Wen Chao, who loved to hear her agree with him, laughed happily. That bitch deserved it. Wang Liangjiao gloated again. She used her family's power and influence to force that man to marry her. And look how that turned out. What good did marriage do? He still didn't like her. Everyone laughed at the forsaken wife behind her back for 10 years, and she still didn't take the hint. Rather than take it down a notch, she just kept on being arrogant and domineering. She deserved an end like this. Really? Wen Chao wondered. The woman was quite attractive. Why didn't Jiang Fumian like her? In his knowledge, as long as a woman looked fair, there wasn't any reason for a man not to like her. Those who should be cast aside were either women who looked average or women who didn't let him sleep with. Wang Liangjiao answered, "It's really quite obvious if you think about it. Bichiyu is so aggressive. She's clearly a woman, yet she brandishes her whip and slaps others all the time. She has no manners at all. Jiang Fumian had been burdened so much even after he married her. He's the most unlucky man ever." Wen Chao, "That's right. Women, they should all be like my Jiao Jiao, obedient and gentle, caring for nobody but me." Wang Liangjiao giggled. Hearing such unbearably vulgar words, Wei Wuxian felt both desolate and enraged, his entire body shivering. He feared that Jiang Chen would burst out, but perhaps due to the extreme grief, he was so motionless that he seemed to have passed out. Wang Liangjiao spoke quietly. "Of course I care for nobody but you. Who else could I care for?" Suddenly another voice barged in. "Young Masterman, all of the houses have been searched already. Over 2,400 treasures have been counted. They are being categorized at the moment." That was the property of Lotus Spear, the belongings of the Jiang family. Wen Chao laughed heartily. "Great! Fantastic! Times like these call for a grand celebration. Let's have a feast here tonight. Make the best use of everything." "Congratulations to Gansu for becoming the master of Lotus Spear." Wang Liangjiao simpered. "What Lotus Spear? Change the name." Wen Chao said, "Tear down all the doors with that night petal lotus insignia and have them replaced with the Wen clan of Zhizhen's son. Jiao Jiao, come here and perform your best song and dance for me." Wei Wuxian and Jiang Chen could not bring themselves to continue listening. They hopped off the wall, hobbling and stumbling away from Lotus Spear, but even after running a long way, they couldn't shake off the merry chatter of the crowd at the drilling ground. A woman's coquettish singing voice wafted cheerfully over Lotus Spear like a poisoned blade, slicing their ears and hearts again and again. They had run thousands of meters in one breath when Jiang Chen abruptly came to a halt. Wei Wuxian did the same. Jiang Chen turned back, and Wei Wuxian grabbed him. "Jiang Chen, what are you doing? Don't go back!" Jiang Chen shook his hand away. "Don't go back there? Are you serious? You're telling me not to go back there? My parents' bodies are still in Lotus Spear. Could I leave just like this? Where could I go if I don't go back?" Wei Wuxian's grip tightened. "What could you do if you go back now? They've killed even Uncle Jiang and Madame Yu. All that's waiting for you is death." Jiang Chen shouted. "Death it is then. If you're scared of death, then get lost. Don't block my path." Wei Wuxian lunged for him. "Revenge is never too late. We must bring back the bodies, but not now." Jiang Chen dashed to the side before attacking. "When does not now mean? I've had enough of you. Get lost right now." Wei Wuxian shouted. "Uncle Jiang and Madame Yu said for me to look after you, for you to be well." "Shut up!" Jiang Chen showed him hard, roaring. "Why?" Wei Wuxian was pushed into the bushes. Jiang Chen threw himself over. He grabbed Wei Wuxian's collar and shook. "Why? Why? Just why? Are you happy? Are you satisfied?" He clenched Wei Wuxian's neck, eyes bloodshot. "Why did you save La Wanji?" Under the grief and the fury, Jiang Chen had lost his mind. He couldn't control the strength that he used at all. Wei Wuxian pulled at his wrist. "Xiang!" Holding him on the ground, Xiang continued to roar. "Why did you save Lawanji? Why did you have to speak up? How many times have I told you not to stir up trouble, not to strike? Do you really want to play the hero so much? Have you seen what happened when you played the hero, huh? Are you happy now?" "Lawanji and Jinsishon and those people can just die. Just let them die. What's their deaths got to do with us? To do with our sect? Why did this have to happen? Why?" "Go die! Go die! Go die! Everyone!" Wei Wuxian's face had turned red. He shouted, "Jiang!" The hand around his neck suddenly loosened. Jiang glowed at him. Tears rolled down his cheeks. The depths of his throat let out a cry of dying man, a painful sob. He spoke through tears. "I want my parents! My parents!" He was asking Wei Wuxian for his father and his mother. Yet, no matter whom he asked, he wouldn't be able to have them back again. Wei Wuxian was crying as well. The two of them sat collapsed amidst the bushes of grass, watching each other bawl. In his heart, Jiang knew clearly that back in the cave of the Xuanu slaughter at Dusk Creek Mountain, even if Wei Wuxian hadn't saved Lao Wanji, the Wen sect would have found some reason to come over sooner or later. But he had always felt that if the whole thing with Wei Wuxian didn't happen, maybe it wouldn't have been so soon. Maybe there would have been some way to turn things around. It was this torturing thought that filled his heart with hatred and wrath. Unable to be let out, they cut up his innards. When the day began to light up, Jiang had almost numbed. Throughout the night, he had somehow managed to sleep a couple of times. The first reason was that, having been too tired from crying himself weak, he couldn't help from passing out. The second reason was that he still had the hope that this might be a nightmare. He couldn't wait to wake up after some rest and open his eyes to find himself lying inside his room back in Lotus Pier. His father would be wiping his sword in the main hall. His mother would be angry again and complaining, scolding Wei Wuxian, who winked in a funny way. His sister would be in the kitchen, thinking as hard as she could about what to make today. His Shidi would be refusing to do their morning lessons properly and jumping around. Not to wake up in a bush of weeds with his head almost bursting apart, having been through an entire night of cold wind and discovering that he was still curled up behind a barren little hill. The first to move was Wei Wuxian. Hands on his legs, he managed to bring himself up. He spoke with a hoarse voice. "Let's go." Jiang didn't move at all. Wei Wuxian pulled at him and repeated, "Let's go." Jiang, "Go where?" His throat was dry as well. Wei Wuxian replied, "To the Meishan sect, to find Shizhe." Jiang waved his outstretched hand away. A few moments later, he finally sat up on his own and slowly got up. The two set off in the direction of Meishan. They went by foot. Along the way, both of them summoned whatever energy they had left. Their footsteps were heavy, as though they carried with them thousands of pounds. Jiang head had always been lowered. Hugging his right hand, he pressed Xiding onto his chest where his heart was. feeling over and over again the only remnant of his family that was left. He'd also often looked back toward where Lotus Bear was, staring at what used to be his home and had now become a den of demons. Again and again, it was as though he'd never get enough of it, as though he'd never lose that last spark of hope. However, the tears within his eyes could never be contained either. They had fled on a hurry without taking with them any food. From the day before to today, they had spent quite a lot of strength as well. After they had walked for half a day, both of them began to feel dizzy. They left the desolate fields into a small city. Wei Wuxian looked at Jiang. Seeing how tired, unwilling to move that he looked, he spoke. "You can sit. I'll go find something to eat." Jiang neither answered him nor nodded. Along the way here, he had only said a few words to Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian told him multiple times not to move before finally walking away. He had often tucked spare money into corners of his clothes, and now it became of use. At least he had money to buy things. Walking around, he bought a bunch of food, specially dried ones, to eat on the way. In less than 30 minutes, he quickly returned to where they parted. However, Jiang was gone. Holding steamed buns, flatbreads, and fruits in his hands, Wei Wuxian felt his heart skip a bit. He forced himself to calm down. Even after he searched through the neighboring streets, he still didn't see Jiang. He finally began to panic. Grabbing a cobbler on the side, he asked, "Mister, there was a young master about the same age as me sitting here. Did you see where he went?" The cobbler licked the thick end of a thread. "The one that was with you?" Wei Wuxian, "Yeah." The cobbler, "I was in the middle of doing something, so I didn't really see, but he kept on spacing out, staring at the people on the street, and then when I looked up at where he was again, he suddenly disappeared. Maybe he left." Wei Wuxian murmured, "He left? He left?" He probably left for Lotus Bear to steal the bodies. As though he had gone mad, Wei Wuxian sprinted immediately toward the direction that they had come from. The weight of the food he'd bought slowed him down, and after running for a while, he abandoned it. But he was dizzy and exhausted, and his panic aggravated his physical distress. His knees buckled, and he fell smack on his face into the dirt, tasting soil. An overwhelming sense of powerlessness and hatred welled up in Wei Wuxian's heart. He smashed his fist hard into the ground and screamed. Only then did he climb to his feet. He turned back to pick up the steam buns he had thrown to the ground earlier, wiped them on his chest, and wolfed them all down in only a few bites. He chewed like he was staring at flesh. As he gulped them down, they caught in his throat, and he coughed, chest aching. Then he picked up a few more and stuffed them into the folds of his robes, keeping one in hand and continuing to eat it as he continued his mad dash in hopes of intercepting Jiang. He arrived at Lotus Pier with the bright moon and a smattering of stars overhead. Not once had he caught sight of Jiang. Hands on his knees as he gasped for breath, Wei Wuxian gazed at the brightly illuminated Lotus Pier from afar. Blood climbed up his chest and into his throat, a common side effect of running for a long time. The metallic taste saturated his mouth and his vision was turning spotty. He thought to himself, why hadn't I caught up with Xiang? Even after I ate food, this was the fastest I could run. He was more tired than me and he's going through something worse. How could he run faster than me? Did he really come back to Lotus Pier? But if he didn't come back here, where would he go? Go to Mission alone without me? After taking a moment to catch his breath and regain his wits, he still decided to head into Lotus Pier to confirm. As he stealthily crept along a segment of wall, a voice in Wei Wuxian's heart prayed despairingly. Please don't let there be someone on the drilling ground talking about Xiang's body this time, or else what? What else could he do? Nothing. He was powerless. Lotus Pier was destroyed. Jiang Fumian and Madame Yu were gone, and now Jiangchen was missing too. He was all alone. He didn't even have a sword. He knew nothing. He could do nothing. For the first time, he discovered how little his power was. In front of something as large as the Zhejian sacked, it was the same as a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Wei Wuxian's eyes felt so warm that he was about to tear up again. He turned around the corner when suddenly a shadow dressed in the sun and flame robes walked toward him. With the speed of lightning, Wei Wuxian had held the person down. His left hand locked both of the person's hands while his right closed around their neck. Lowering his voice, he threatened with the most ruthless tone that he could conjure. Don't make any noise, or else I can break your neck at once. He held down firmly by him. The person hurried. Young Master Wei, it's me. It was the voice of a young man. Wei Wuxian's first reaction to it was to think, could it be someone I know, going undercover by wearing the Wen Clan uniform? But this voice was completely unfamiliar to him. He immediately dismissed the thought and tightened his grip. Don't try anything funny. I'm not. Wait, gone, sir. You can take a look at my face. Look at his face? Don't tell me he has something hidden in his mouth that he is going to spit at me. Wei Wuxian was on guard as he wearily turned the young man's face to take a look. He had delicate and handsome features with an air of youthful naivete. He was the young man of the Wen Clan of Zhejian whom they had seen while spying yesterday. Don't know him, Wei Wuxian thought apathetically. He turned the youth's face back and continued to throttle him. Keeping his voice down, he hissed, Who are you? The young man seemed a little disappointed. I'm Wen Niang. Wei Wuxian frowned. Who's that? Inwardly, he was thinking, who cares who he is? Either way, he has status in the clan. With him in hand, I might be able to exchange him for Jiangchen. Wen Niang spoke slowly and falteringly. A couple of years ago, during Zhejian's Grand Symposium, I shot arrows. Wei Wuxian burned with frustration at his hemming and hawing. He raged. You what? You got a slutter? Wen Yang flinched in fright in Wei Wuxian's grip, looking as if he wanted to curl into a ball and clutch at his own head to protect it. Softly, he answered, "Yeah." Wei Wuxian had no response to that. Looking at the sad, timid little sluttering figure, a vague memory suddenly returned to him. The Qixin Grand Symposium, the year before last, Grand Symposium, shooting arrows. Oh, there was someone. Wei Wuxian ventured a guess. "You're that when something? The one who was pretty good at archery?" Wen Yang nodded vigorously. That's me," he replied in delight. "Yesterday I saw you, Wei Gonse and Jiang Gonse, and I thought you might come back." "You saw me yesterday?" Wei Wuxian asked. Yes," Wen Yang answered. "But you didn't tell anyone?" Wei Wuxian pressed. "I would never," Wen Yang exclaimed. "I would never tell anyone." It was a rare, stutter-free statement. His tone was firm and resolute, as if he were swearing an oath. But Wei Wuxian still wavered, uncertain. Wen Yang continued. "Wei Gonse, you're here to find Jiang Gonse, aren't you?" "Is Jiangshan inside?" Wei Wuxian exclaimed. Wen Yang gave an honest answer. "Yes." Wen Yang answered honestly. Wei Wuxian's mind whirled as fast as lightning when he heard this. "Jiangshan is inside, so I'll have to enter Lotus Pier. Should I take Wen Yang hostage? No use in that. Wen Chao probably doesn't like him, so it's completely pointless to hold him hostage. And is he lying or not? Isn't he a member of the Wen clan? But he really didn't sound the alarm when he saw us yesterday. If I release him, will he betray me? Can someone so kind-hearted really exist among the Wen dogs? If I want to be absolutely sure nothing goes wrong, only my option is..." The intent to kill flashed through Wei Wuxian's mind. He had never been one particularly given to killing. But ever since the tragedy that befell his family, wrath and fury had been smouldering within him. Mercy or benevolence had no place in a situation as grave as this. By applying just a bit of force to his right hand, he could break Wen Yang's neck. As Wei Wuxian's thoughts swirled, Wen Yang asked, "Wei Gonse, have you returned to save Jiang Gonse?" Wei Wuxian's fingers curled. "What do you think?" he retorted frostily. Surprisingly, Wen Yang smiled, though he did so nervously. "I knew it. I can help you save him." For a second, Wei Wuxian thought he'd misheard. Astonished, he blurted, You'll help me save him?" Yes, right now," Wen Yang said. "I can bring him out right now. Wen Chao and the rest have gone out." Wei Wuxian gripped him. "Can you really?" "Yes," Wen Yang assured. I'm considered a junior of the Wen clan. There's a group of sect disciples under my command who will heed my orders." "Heed your orders?" Wei Wuxian snapped. "To kill people?" No. Wen Yang hurriedly explained himself. "The sect disciples under me would never kill people at random. I've never killed anyone from the Xiang clan either. I only hurried here after I heard what happened at Lotus Pier. Really? Wei Wuxian stared at him. What is he up to? Is he lying? Or just feigning civility? This is ridiculous. Does he think me a fool? The frightening thing, however, was that he was honestly beside himself with joy at having found a lifeline. He harshly cursed himself. Foolish, useless, absurd, outrageous, fanciful. However, he was just one person with no sword or spiritual weapons, and there were hundreds and thousands of cultivators from the Wen clan stationed here, and possibly Wen Shuliu as well. He wasn't afraid to die, only afraid that he couldn't save Jiangshan before he did. He was afraid he'd end up letting down Jiang Fumian and Madame Mu, who'd entrusted Jiangshan to him. With things being what they were, the only one he could pin his hopes on was this one he'd met a grand total of 3 times. Wei Wuxian licked his parched lips and said, his voice rough, "Then can you help me retrieve Secret Jiang and Madame Mu's bodies?" Without realizing it, he had also begun to stammer. He was midway through his sentence, then he realized he was still gripping Wen Yang threateningly and hastily released the young man. He had a contingency plan. However, if Wen Yang fled and yelled the moment he released him, Wei Wuxian was ready to immediately split his head open. However, Wen Yang turned around and said in all seriousness, I'll definitely do my best." His mind in a muddle, Wei Wuxian waited. As he paced in circles, he thought, "What's wrong with me? Have I gone mad? Why is Wen Yang helping me? And why should I trust him? What if he's lied to me and Jiangshan isn't inside at all? No, it's best if he isn't inside." Before an instant's time had passed, Wen Yang re-emerged soundlessly with someone on his back. The person was covered in blood and motionless, their face ghastly pale, and their eyes shut tight. It was none other than Jiangshan. Wei Wuxian softly called out, "Jiangshan! Jiangshan!" He held a hand under Jiangshan's nose, still breathing. Wen Yang extended a hand to Wei Wuxian and placed something in his palm. "Jianggon's seed, I brought that too." Recalling that he had harbored the intent to kill Wen Yang earlier, Wei Wuxian didn't know what else he could say. "Thank you," he mumbled. "You're welcome," Wen Yang replied. "As for Jiangshan and Madame Mu's bodies, I've already had them moved and will transport them to you later. It's inadvisable to stay for too long. You should go now." Without needing him to say anything else, Wei Wuxian took Jiangshan over, wanting to carry him on his own back. Yet, only one glance and he saw the bloody whip wound across Jiangshan's chest. Wei Wuxian, the discipline whip? Yes, Wen Yang confirmed. Wen Chao got his hands on the Jiang clan's discipline whip. Jiang Gonsa has other injuries as well. Wei Wuxian felt around on Jiangshan. He had at least 3 broken ribs, and who knew what else that couldn't yet be seen. When Chao returns and realizes what happened, he will definitely hunt for both of you around Yumeng. Wen Niang added, Wei gone, sir. If you trust me, I can show you a good place to hide. Jiang Chen was seriously injured and in urgent need of treatment and rest. They definitely couldn't be on the move and missing meals as they had been before. Wei Wuxian saw no other way out of this impossible predicament than relying on Wen Niang. Just a day ago, he would never have dreamed he and Jiang Chen would have to rely on a Wen's help to escape. He might even have died rather than submit. But now, Wei Wuxian could only say, Thank you. Wen Niang waved his hands. No need for thanks. Wei gone, sir. This way. I have a boat. Carrying in Jiang Chen, Wei Wuxian found the ship that Wen Niang had hidden beforehand and placed Jiang Chen within the cabin. Wen Niang first cleaned Jiang Chen's wounds and simply applied bandages over some ointment. Watching his familiar movements, Wei Wuxian couldn't help but recall how he was back during the discussion conference at Qizhen. The discussion conference was the year when Lao Wenqi, Lan Shichen, Jin Sichuan, and he ranked top 4 in archery. On the day before the archery competition began, he was strolling around the nightless city alone. As he strolled, he passed through a small garden and suddenly heard the sound of a bowstring vibrating from in front of him. Wei Wuxian had entered the garden through the trees, brushing aside the leaves as he crept along. He'd seen a young man in lightweight white robes standing there, aiming his bow at a target in front of him right before he released the string. The young man's side profile was delicate and refined, and his posture as he drew the bow was both beautiful and perfectly correct. The target's red-painted center was densely packed with arrows, and his latest shot had joined the crowd there as well. To think he had not missed a single shot. That's some sharp shooting, Wei Wuxian cheered. Seeing his shot had flown true, the young man pulled another arrow from the quiver on his back. He had his head down, about to knock the arrow, when he unexpectedly heard Wei Wuxian's unfamiliar voice. Startled, his hand shuddered and the arrow fell to the ground. Wei Wuxian walked out from behind the flower bed with a smile. Which of the Wen clan's young masters are you? That was marvelous, beautiful, great shooting there. I've never seen anyone from your clan who could shoot. Before he could finish, the young man abandoned his bow and arrows and fled from sight. Wei Wuxian was struck momentarily speechless. Then he stroked his chin. Am I that dashing? So dashing I scared him away? He didn't take the incident to heart, dismissing it as a curious sighting. The competition was about to start, so he returned to the square. There was a commotion on the Wen clan side. Wei Wuxian asked Jiang Chen, How can their clan stir up so much trouble organizing a symposium? There's drama every day. What's the matter now? What else? Jiang Chen scoffed. The number of competition sports is limited. They're all fighting over who gets to participate. After a pause, he continued contemptuously. That group of ones are all equally terrible archers. It's going to be like that no matter who participates. Why would fighting over it make any difference? From the other end of the square, Wen Chao barked. One more! We're still one short. Last spot. The young man in white from before was also standing among the Wen-clan crowd. He looked left and right, then mustered up enough courage to lift his hand. But he didn't hold it up high enough, and he didn't dare to shout out his own name as the others did. It was only after he'd been shoved around for a while that someone noticed him and marveled aloud. "Xiangling, you want to participate too?" That young man named Xiangling nodded. The boy called Xiangling nodded his head. Somebody else laughed. "I haven't even seen you pick up a bow. Why do you want to participate? Don't waste the spot." Wen Xiangling seemed as if he wanted to protest for himself. The person said, all right. Don't be so curious. The rank is recorded. If you go up there and lose your own face, it wouldn't be my problem." Wei Wuxian. Lose face? If anyone in the Jizhenwen sect could find some face for you all, he'd be the one. The disdain in the person's tone came too easily, and it incurred Wei Wuxian's displeasure to hear. He raised his voice. "Who said he's never held a bow before? He has, and he's very good at it." The crowd looked at him with slight surprise, then turned their eyes to the young man. Wen Xiangling's face was somewhat pale to begin with, and suddenly having everyone's attention on him, turned it beet red in no time. His pitch-black eyes stared hard at Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian walked over, hands clasped behind his back. "Weren't you doing a pretty good job of it earlier in the garden?" Wen Chao turned around and wondered dubiously. "Really? You're good at archery? Why did I never hear about this?" Wen Xiangling mumbled quietly. I only just started training recently." His voice was soft and also halting, as if he was preparing for someone to cut him off any time, which indeed happened often. Wen Chao impatiently interrupted him. "All right then. There's a target there. Go ahead and show us. If you're good, you're in. If not, get out of the way." The area around Wen Xiangling was vacated in no time. His grip on the bow tightened as he looked pleadingly left and right. Seeing how lacking he was in self-confidence, Wei Wuxian patted him on the shoulder. "Relax. Just shoot as you did before." Wen Xiangling gave him a grateful look, took a deep breath, and drew the bow. But as soon as he did, Wei Wuxian shook his head inwardly and thought, "No good." Wen Xiangling had likely never shot an arrow in the presence of other people. He was shaking all over from his arm to his fingertips. The arrow hurtled forth and missed the target totally. The ones watching him jeered. "How is this good? I can shoot better than that with my eyes closed." "All right, let's stop wasting time. Hurry up and pick someone." Wen Xiangling's face flushed all the way to his ears. He didn't even need others to wave him away as he fled, mortified. Wei Wuxian chased after him. "Hey, don't run away! What's your Xiangling, Xiang, right? What are you running away for?" Hearing Wei Wuxian calling him after, Wen Xiangling stopped and turned around. He sunk his head, looking deeply ashamed. "Sorry." "Why are you apologizing to me?" Wei Wuxian wondered. Clearly feeling guilty, Wen Xiangling explained. You recommended me, but I made you lose face." What face is there for me to lose? Wei Wuxian asked. You don't really shoot in front of others, right? Were you nervous just now? Wen Xiuling nodded and Wei Wuxian said, Have some confidence in yourself. I'll be honest with you. You shoot better than anyone else in your clan, and of all the sect disciples I've seen, there are no more than 3 who are better at archery than you. Jiang Chen walked over. What are you up to now? 3 what? Wei Wuxian pointed at Jiang Chen. There, this one. For example, he is not as good as you in archery. Jiang Chen flew into a rage. You're dead. Wei Wuxian accepted a blow from him. Without even batting an eyelash, he continued. It's true. There's honestly nothing to be nervous about. Practice in front of others more often, and you'll get used to it. Next time, you'll definitely make them see you in a new light. Wen Xiuling was probably one of Wen clan's disciples furthest in bloodline. His status was neither high nor low, yet his personality was timid. He didn't dare do anything, and even his speech stuttered. Through much practice, he had finally conjured up the courage to enter the competition, but he blew it because he was too nervous. If he didn't receive the right guidance, perhaps the boy would hide his true self more and more from now on and never dare to perform in front of other people again. Wei Wuxian encouraged him a couple of times and touched on a few areas of growth, correcting some minuscule problems that he had when he was shooting in the garden. Wen Xiuling listened so attentively that he didn't even turn his eyes away, nodding uncontrollably. Jiang Chen, where did you find so much nonsense? The competition is starting soon. Get into the arena right now. Wei Wuxian spoke to Wen Xiuling in a serious tone. I'll be off to the competition now. Later, you can see how I shoot when I'm in the arena. Jiang Chen dragged him away, short of patience. He spat as he dragged. See how you shoot? Do you think that you're a model or something? Wei Wuxian thought for a moment before replying. Yeah, am I not? Wei Wuxian, I haven't seen anyone as shameless as you. As he recalled this, Wei Wuxian's gaze turned from Wenniang toward Jiang Chen, whose body was covered in blood and eyes were tightly shut. His fingers couldn't help but clenched into fists. They first went through the water path and down the river. When they arrived ashore, they travelled in the carriage that Wenniang had prepared. The second day, they had arrived in Yiling. Wenniang summoned dozens of sect disciples and personally escorted both of them to a large, splendid mansion with a courtyard. He snuck them through the back entrance and led Wei Wuxian to a small house on the mansion's grounds. Wenniang had only just turned to close the door when Wei Wuxian caught him by the neck again before he even had the chance to draw breath. What is this place? Wei Wuxian questioned in a hushed voice. Even though Wenniang had saved them, he couldn't let his guard down around the vents. He'd kept a constant eye on Wenniang, and they'd passed quite a few rooms full of people conversing with Cajun accent as they moved through the mansion. Eavesdropping on a few isolated phrases that leaked through the gaps around the windows and doors, he'd caught the words Overwatch Office. No, Flustered, Wenniang waved his hands. No, what? Wei Wuxian pressed. Isn't this the Overwatch office in Yiling? Which unlucky clan's territory did the ones occupy this time? What exactly did you want to accomplish by bringing us here? Xiang tried his best to explain. Vivegans, I listen to me. This is an Overwatch office, but I never mean to harm you. If I wanted to, I could have gone back on my word last night as soon as I entered Lotus Spear. There would have been no need to lure both of you here. Wei Wuxian had been wound tight and on edge the past few days, unable to relax for a single moment. His thoughts were confused and whirling, leaving him skeptical despite Xiang's reasonable response. This is indeed the Overwatch office, Xiang added. If there's one place that the Wen clan won't search, it's here. You can stay here. Just don't let anyone find you. Xiang paused briefly before he finally forced himself to release his grip. He muttered a thank you and a sorry under his breath, then laid Jiangchen on the wooden bed in the room. At that moment, the door to the room suddenly opened and a woman's voice rang out. I was just about to go looking for you. You'd better give me a good explanation. Xiang had just told them they mustn't be discovered and now they'd been caught. Wei Wuxian promptly broke out in a cold sweat and moved to block the bed. Xiang was so startled he couldn't utter a word. Both were frozen in place as they stared at the woman standing in the doorway, or rather, the young woman. Her skin was slightly tanned, and though her face was sweet, it was turned up in a haughty expression. She wore a blazing sun uniform with flames so vividly red it looked like her sleeves and collar were a dancing inferno. This clearly marked her as someone of extremely high rank in a Wen clan, a rank on par with Wen Chao. The three of them stood still as statues as they faced each other until frantic footsteps came from outside. Wei Wuxian steeled himself and was just about to make a move when the young woman unexpectedly beat him to it. She slammed the door shut with a heavy thud, shutting herself out. Chief Officer Wen, what's going on? Someone asked outside. Nothing. My younger brother is back. They heard the young woman say coolly. He's feeling low again. Don't bother him. Let's go. We'll continue our conversation when we return. The ones outside the door acknowledged her command and followed her away. Xiang breathed a sigh of relief and then turned to Wei Wuxian to explain. My elder sister. Wencheng is your elder sister? Wei Wuxian asked. A little embarrassed, Xiang nodded. My elder sister is very formidable. Indeed she was. Wencheng could be considered a famous cultivator of the Chosen One sect. She wasn't a daughter of the Chosen One sect's leader, Wen Rohan, but instead the daughter of one of Wen Rohan's cousins. Although they were far cousins, Wen Rohan had always had a close relationship to this cousin of his. On top of that, Wencheng was exceptional in the liberal arts and studied medicine as well. She was a talent and thus she was rather favored by Wen Rohan. She often followed Wen Rohan to the banquets of the Chosen One sect, which was why Wei Wuxian found her ways familiar. She was a beauty after all. He had also heard from somewhere that she had an elder or younger brother. But perhaps because he wasn't as talented as Xiang, not many people talked about him. Wei Wuxian exclaimed, "You're really the younger brother of Xiang?" Wen thought that what he was surprised at about was how such an excellent, well-known sister could have such an average brother. He admitted, "Yeah, my sister is really good. I'm not." Wei Wuxian, No, you're really good as well. What I found surprising is that your sister is Xiang, the office leader, and you dared take us." Suddenly, Jiang shifted on the bed. He scrunched his eyebrows lightly. Wei Wuxian immediately turned around to check on him. "Jiang?" Wen hurried. "He's awake. He needs medicine. I'll go get some." After he walked out, he closed the door behind him. Having been passed out for so long, Jiang finally woke up. Wei Wuxian had originally been ecstatic, but soon afterward he knew that something was wrong. Jiang's expression was rather strange. It was calm, almost too calm. He stared at the ceiling as though he wasn't at all interested in the situation that he was in, as though he didn't care about where he was either. Wei Wuxian didn't expect him to react in such a way. Sadness, happiness, anger, shock. He had none of this. His heart skipped a beat. "Jiang, can you see me? Can you hear me? Do you know who I am?" Jiang glanced at him. He didn't say anything. Wei Wuxian asked him a few more questions. Arm supporting himself, he finally sat upright. He looked down at the mark of the discipline whip on his chest before laughing bitterly. When the discipline whip struck, there was no removing the mark of shame. Against his own conscience, Wei Wuxian said, "Don't look. We'll find a way to get rid of it." Jiang struck a palm at him. The strike was so weak and feeble that Wei Wuxian did not even sway. "Hit me all you want, as long as it makes you feel better." "Did you feel it?" Jiang asked. Wei Wuxian was momentarily taken aback. "What? Feel what?" "My spiritual power. Did you feel it?" Jiang pressed him. "What spiritual power?" Wei Wuxian asked. "You didn't use spiritual power at all." "I did." "What exactly? What did you say?" Jiang repeated himself word for word. "I said, I used it. I used all my spiritual power and then some of that strike. So I'm asking you, did you feel it?" Wei Wuxian stared at him, falling quiet. After a moment, he said, "Try hitting me again." "Forget it," Jiang told him. "No matter how many times I hit you, the result will be the same." "Wei Wuxian, do you know why co-melting hand is called that?" Wei Wuxian's heart sank. "Because his hands can dissolve golden cores and render the victims unable to form new ones," Jiang continued. "Their spiritual power will dissipate, reducing them to nothing more than ordinary humans. and an ordinary human in a cultivation clan is good for nothing. They can only live out the rest of their common lives, abandoning all dreams of ever ascending higher. Wenchulio dissolved Mum and Father's golden curse. Once they lost the ability to fight back, he killed them. Wei Wuxian's mind was in turmoil. At a loss as to what to do, he murmured, "Co-melting hand? Co-melting hand?" Jiang Chen laughed grimly. Wenchulio, I want to seek revenge. I have to. But how can I? I don't even have a golden co anymore, and I'll never be able to form a new one again. So how am I going to take revenge? Wei Wuxian's legs gave out from under him. He stared at Jiang Chen, who seemed to have gone insane. Words failed him. Nobody knew more than him how much of an ambitious person Jiang Chen was, what high regard he held his cultivation and spiritual power in. But now, with the strike of the co-melting hand, his cultivation, his self-esteem, his hope of revenge had all been smashed to dust. Jiang Chen howled with laughter like a madman. He lay back down on the bed with his arms spread open and abandoned himself to despair. Wei Wuxian, why did you save me? What's the point of saving me? To let me live on uselessly while I watch the Wen dogs run rampant? At this point in time, Wen Niang entered through the door. On his face was a smile that almost looked fawning. He walked with bowl of medicine in his hand toward the bed. Before he could say anything, those sun robes reflected against Jiang Chen's eyes. His pupils suddenly shrunk. Jiang Chen kicked Wen Niang, toppling over the bowl of medicine. The black liquid all spilled onto Wen Niang. Wei Wuxian wanted to take the bowl of medicine. He pulled up Wen Niang as well, who had been shocked speechless. Jiang Chen roared at him. "What's wrong with you?" Wen Niang was so scared that he stepped back a couple of times. Jiang Chen grabbed Wei Wuxian by the collar and shouted, "You see a Wen dog and you don't kill him? And you wanted to pull him up? Do you want to die?" Although he used as much strength as he could, his arms were still weak. Wei Wuxian struggled out of them quickly. Jiang Chen finally noticed where he was. He glanced around and asked in alarm, "Where is this?" Wen Niang answered from far away, "The supervision office at Yiling, but it's very safe." Jiang Chen spun toward Wei Wuxian. "Supervision office? You walked yourself into their trap?" Wei Wuxian, "No." Jiang Chen spoke in a harsh voice. "No? Then what are you doing in a supervision office? How did you get here? Don't tell me that you went to the Wen dogs for help." Wei Wuxian grabbed him. "Jiang Chen, calm down first. It's very safe here. Wake up. It's not for certain that the co-melting hand can't..." Jiang Chen couldn't listen to anyone's words anymore. He was already half mad. Hands around Wei Wuxian's neck, he laughed. "Wei Wuxian! Ha ha! Wei Wuxian! You?" Suddenly, a red shadow kicked the door open and darted inside. With a strike of her palm, a silver light flashed by. A needle went into Xiang's head, and he lay back down at once. Wenqiang turned around to shut the door before scolding in a low voice. Wenniang, how stupid are you? You let him shout and laugh and be so loud? Do you want him to be discovered? As though he saw his savior, he shouted, Sister! Wenqiang, calling me your sister now? I haven't asked you yet. Since when have you been so bold? How dare you hide people? I've already snuck a few questions earlier on. So that was why you suddenly wanted to go to Yunmei. How full of yourself are you? Who gave you so much courage? If Wenqiao knows about this, wouldn't he tear you two apart? If he really is set on killing someone, do you think that I can stop him? She spoke rapidly but articulately, her tone so strong and forceful that it brooked no argument. Wei Wuxian couldn't find a single opportunity to cut in. Wenniang's face was as pale as snow. 谢谢, but Wei Gong, sir. Wei Chen continued, voice stern. I won't say anything too much, seeing that you did it out of gratitude, and that's an understandable reason. However, these two must not stay here for so long. You came suddenly and left suddenly. Meanwhile, Wenqiao lost the two of them. Do you think Wenqiao is that much of an idiot? Their search will reach here sooner or later. This is the supervision office under my command, and this is your house. What accusations do you think it'll be if they discover that you are hiding them? Think carefully. She listed the stakes so clearly it was as though she'd pointed at Wei Wuxian's nose and told him bluntly to get lost, to leave and not burden them further. If Wei Wuxian had been the one injured, or if it had been someone else who saved them, he would have had no qualms about bidding farewell and leaving right away. But it was Xiang who was injured. He'd lost his core and was utterly out of his mind. With Xiang like this, Wei Wuxian could not bring himself to leave. Besides, it was the Wen clan who'd gotten them into this mess to begin with. He couldn't take it lying down. And so, Wei Wuxian could only grit his teeth and keep silent. But the Wen clan... Wenniang began. What the Wen clan does is not representative of what we do. Wenqiang interrupted him. The sins of the Wen clan are not ours to bear. Wei Ying, don't look at me like that. Every debt has its own debtor. I'm the chief officer here in Yiling, but I was ordered to assume the post. I am a doctor, and I have never killed anyone, much less have the blood of your Jian clan on my hands. That was the truth. Wei Wuxian had never heard of Wenqiang killing anyone, only that people hoped she'd take over for their regions. Wenqiang was one of the rare ones who acted and behaved normally. Her reputation had always been decent, and sometimes she could even put in a good word for others with Wen Rohan. Silence reigned in the room. After a while, Wenqiang said, Don't pull out that needle. If he's conscious, that boy's sure to throw another fit. I could hear all that yelling and shouting from outside. Put it out when he recovers, then leave as soon as possible. I don't want to deal with Wenqiao, especially that woman attached to him. The sight of her disgusts me. Having said that, she left the room decisively. She means We can't stay for long, but we can stay for a few days, right? Wei Wuxian asked. Wen Niang hurriedly nodded. Thank you, Jie. A packet of medicinal herbs was tossed in from outside the door. Put in some effort if you really want to thank me. Wen Xiang scolded from afar. What the hell was that medicine you decocted earlier? Redo it. The packet of medicinal herbs smacked right into Wen Niang, but he still very happily said, Any medicine my sister prepared is sure to be good. 100 times better than mine. Superb for certain. Wei Wuxian finally relaxed completely. Thank you. He understood the fact that one of their siblings deciding to turn a blind eye to them and the other deciding to outright help them meant that they were placing themselves in extreme danger. Just as Wen Xiang said, if Wen Chao truly wanted to kill anyone, it was unlikely for Wen Qiang to be able to stop him. Perhaps she'd be affected as well. After all, children of others could never compare to children of one's own. With the needle in Jiangxin's head, he slept for 3 days. Both his bones and the exterior injuries had healed already. All that was left and couldn't be healed were the eternal marks from the discipline whip and the golden cow that he'd never be able to take back. Wei Wuxian had also been thinking for 3 days. 3 days later, Wei Wuxian said goodbye to Wen Niang. Carrying Jiangxin on his back, he walked for a while and borrowed a small house from a forest guard. He closed the door and pulled out the needle in Jiangxin's head. He opened his eyes only after a long time had passed. He did wake up, but he didn't move at all. He was so uninterested that he didn't even turn around or ask where this is. He didn't drink any water, he didn't eat any food. It seemed that all he sought for was death. Wei Wuxian. Do you really want to die? Jiangxin. I can't seek revenge even when I'm alive. Why shouldn't I die? Maybe I'll be able to turn into a ferocious ghost. Wei Wuxian. You've been undergoing soul-calming ceremonies ever since you were young. You won't be able to turn into a ferocious ghost even after you die. Jiangxin. If I can't seek revenge no matter if I'm dead or alive, then what's the difference between the two? After he said this, he wouldn't speak again no matter what. Wei Wuxian sat by the bed. He looked at him for a while. Slapping his knees, he stood up and began to busy himself. When evening came, he had finally finished making a meal. He placed everything onto the table. Get up, it's time for dinner. Of course, Jiangxin ignored him. Wei Wuxian sat in front of the table. He picked up his own chopsticks. If you don't replenish your strength, how can we go take back your golden cow? Hearing the words golden cow, Jiangxin finally blinked. Wei Wuxian continued. That's right, don't doubt it. You didn't hear wrong. What I said is to take back your golden cow. Jiangxin moved his lips. His throat was dry. You know how? Wei Wuxian spoke in a calm voice. I do. He turned around. You've known since a long time ago that my mother Sangsa Sanren was a pupil of Baoshan Sanren, haven't you? The sentence was only a few words long, however, it immediately lit up the lifeless eyes of Xiang. Baoshan Sanren, a legendary celestial who had lived for hundreds of years, a secluded master who was said to be able to revive the dead, give flesh to bones. His voice trembled. You mean? Vaibhushan spoke clearly. I mean that I know in the name Baoshan which mountain is being embraced. This means that I can take you to Baoshan Sanren. Xiang. But isn't it that you can't remember the things from when you were young? It's not that I don't remember anything, Vaibhushan explained. I haven't forgotten the bits that were drilled into my mind. Among other things, I remember a woman's voice repeating a location to me over and over. The voice said that if I were to find myself in a desperate predicament with no other options, I could go there and climb the mountain to ask the immortal for help. Xiang instantly rolled off the bed and lunged at the table. Vaibhushan pushed a bowl and chopsticks over to him. Eat! Xiang clutched at the edge of the table. Overwhelmed with emotion, he tried to speak. I eat, Vaibhushan said again. We'll talk as we eat, or else I won't say a word. Xiang could only clamber onto the bench, pick up the chopsticks, and begin to shovel rice into his mouth. He had originally lost all hope, but with this turn of events, he suddenly saw a light at the end of the tunnel. He was so worked up with excitement that he seemed to be on fire. He could barely sit still and didn't even notice that he was holding his chopsticks upside down. It was only when Vaibhushan saw him starting to eat, his mind preoccupied with purpose, that he continued. I'll take you there in a few days. Today, Xiang demanded. What are you afraid of? Vaibhushan said. Do you think a centuries-old immortal will poof away in the next few days? The reason I said it'll take a few days is because there are taboos I must tell you about. If you transgress and anger the Grandmaster, it'll all be over. You and I will be goners. Xiang stared at him with wide eyes, hoping he'd say more. Once you go up the mountain, you can't open your eyes and look around. Vaibhushan continued. You can't memorize the scenery or look at anyone else's face. No matter what the other party tells you to do, you must obey. Xiang. Okay. Vaibhushan. And here's the most important point. If you are asked who you are, you have to say that you are the son of Sangsa Sanren. You can't reveal your true identity. Xiang. Okay. It was likely that no matter what things Vaibhushan told him to do, Xiang would say yes with watering eyes. Vaibhushan concluded. All right, let's eat. Replenish our strength and boost our energy. I'll have to prepare during the next few days. Xiang had finally realized that he held his chopsticks wrong. He turned them over and ate a few more mouthfuls. It was so spicy that his eyes grew red. He still couldn't help but curse. Tastes terrible. After days of continuously being asked about the details of Baoshan Sanren, Wei Wuxian set off with Jiangxin. After a long journey, they arrived at the bottom of one of the remote mountains in Yiling. The mountain was lively with green plants. Its top was surrounded by cloud and mist. There was indeed some sense of heavenliness to it, yet it was still somewhat far away from celestial mountain that everyone thought it was. Jiangxin was suspicious. One moment he suspected Wei Wuxian was lying to him, and the next that Wei Wuxian had heard or remembered something wrong when he was a child. And the moment after that, he'd be worrying whether they'd ever be able to find it. Upon seeing the mountain, he started doubting again. Is this really where Baoshan Sanren resides? This is definitely the place, Wei Wuxian replied with conviction. What's the use of lying to you? So you'll be happy for a few days only to take a heavier blow later? They'd already had a similar exchange countless times. Wei Wuxian accompanied him halfway up the mountain. All right, from this point onward, I can't go with you. He took out a piece of cloth and blindfolded Jiangxin, repeatedly cautioning him. You must never ever open your eyes. There are no predatory beasts on the mountain. Walk slowly, but even if you fall, you mustn't pull off the blindfold. There is absolutely no room for curiosity. Remember, insist that you are Wei Wuxian. You know how you should answer whatever questions you are asked, right? His ability to reform his golden cow and seek revenge depended on this. Naturally, Jiangxin did not dare be negligent. He nodded nervously, then turned and slowly began to make his way up. Wei Wuxian called out after him. I'll wait for you in the town we came across earlier. After watching Jiangxin slowly shuffle away, he turned round and took another mountain path. Jiangxin had been in the mountain for 7 days. The town that they had agreed to meet in was built amid the mountains. It was rather remote. There weren't many people inside. The roads were both thin and bumpy. There weren't even any street vendors on the side. Wei Wuxian was squatting on the side of the road. He glanced at the direction of the mountain. There was still no sight of Jiangxin. Hands on his knees, he stood up before feeling his head spin. Wobbling for a few moments, he walked toward the only tea house in the town. The tea house was likely the only building in the town that wasn't crude. Just as he entered, a waiter went up to him with a smile. What would you like? Wei Wuxian was immediately alarmed. He was exhausted, having been constantly on the move for the past few days. He hadn't had the presence of mind to tidy himself up and probably looked unkempt. It would be a miracle if the staff of a typical tea house didn't pull faces at the sight of him and boot him out at once. This man rushing over to greet him with such enthusiasm seemed fake. He swept a swift glance around the tea house. The cashier stood behind the counter with his head practically buried in the ledger. 7 or 8 people sat scattered across 10 tables. Many of them wore cloaks and were drinking tea with their heads down as if to conceal something. Wei Wuxian immediately made his decision and turned to leave. But he'd only taken one step out of the tea house door when a tall, shadowy figure pressed in close and in one thunderous move struck him in the chest. He crashed into 2 tables, sending them flying. The waiter and cashier fled in panic, and the 7 or 8 people inside removed their cloaks to reveal the blazing sun uniforms underneath. Wen Shuliu strode over the threshold and stood before Wei Wuxian. With a pensive expression, he looked at him as he struggled to stand, then at his own palm. Someone kicked Wei Wuxian in the back of the knee, making him fall heavily to the ground. When Chao's face appeared above him, his expression one of cruel excitement. "Down already? You stinking bastard! Weren't you quite the jumper in the journey of Slotus Cave? Just one strike and you're finished? Ha ha ha! Go on, jump around again. Let's see how you manage." Wang Liangjiao's impatient voice rang out. "Quick, Wine Gone, sir! Chop off his arm! He still owes us an arm!" No, no rush," Wen Chao said. "It wasn't easy to find this guy. Cutting off his arm will make him bleed out. And it's boring if he dies and that quickly. Dissolve his core first. I want to hear him scream like that little bastard Jiangchen did." "Then dissolve his core and get to chopping off his arm," Wang Liangjiao insisted. While they were merrily discussing their preferred methods, Wei Wuxian suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Sure, whatever torture you people have, bring it on. You asked for it," Wang Liangjiao said with a laugh. "Still trying to play the hero when you're on the verge of death?" Wen Chao scoffed. Wei Wuxian sneered at him. "It's because I'm on the verge of death that I'm happy. I was afraid that I couldn't die. Torture me if you dare. The more brutal, the better. That way, I'll be sure to return as a malicious ghost and haunt everyone in the One Clan of Xiang. I'll curse you all and not allow you a single hour of rest." At those words, Wen Chao wavered. Descendants of illustrious clans such as Jiangfu Men and Yu Siyuan were nurtured by their families and influenced by their spiritual weapons from birth. As they matured, they underwent countless soul tranquilization rites in order to minimize the chance of them turning into malicious ghosts after death. But Wei Wuxian was different. He was the son of a servant. He hadn't been with the Jian clan since birth, and so he hadn't had the opportunity to undergo a full suite of soul tranquilizing rites. If he died full of resentment that corrupted his lingering soul into a malicious ghost bent on haunting them, that would indeed be a headache. The more torment he suffered in life, and the crueler and more drawn out that torment was, the more savage and unmanageable his malicious ghost would be in death. Seeing this hesitation, Wang Liangjiao hurriedly piped up. "Wingong, sir, don't listen to his nonsense. It's not like anyone can just turn right into a malicious ghost after death. The time and place and conditions all have to be right, or he won't be able to manage it. Besides, even if he really does pull it off, don't tell me the One Clan of Xiang can't handle one wandering ghost. Haven't we been hunting him all this time specifically to punish him? Or are we going to let him off just because he bluffed?" Of course not, Wen Chao said. Knowing that death was all but certain, Wei Wuxian felt increasingly calm. The bone-deep hatred in him hardened into a determination as cold as iron. His expression made Wen Chao displeased, but it also made his hair stand on end. He kicked Wei Wuxian in the stomach. Still pretending, huh? Who are you trying to scare? Stop pretending to be a hero. The sect disciples followed suit and pummeled him. It was only when Wen Chao felt they'd done enough that he barked, "Enough!" Wei Wuxian coughed up another mouthful of blood. He thought furiously. Time to deal the killing blow? Dying is all the same, no worse than living, and my odds of turning into a vengeful, malicious ghost are 1 in 3. To his surprise, he felt incredibly excited by the prospect. But Wen Chao said, Wei, you consider yourself a dauntless man who fears nothing? One who is both brave and mighty, don't you? Huh? Wei Wuxian sounded surprised. So, when dogs can actually manage to say something that makes sense? Wen Chao's fist slammed down. He grinned nastily. Gone! Mouth off all you want. I gotta see how long you can keep up that heroic act. He ordered his men to seize Wei Wuxian. Wen Shuli walked over and picked him off the ground. Wei Wuxian strained to raise his head to see at the man who killed Jiang Fengmian and Madame Miu and destroyed Jiangshen's golden coat. He seared his face and his indifferent expression into his mind. The Wen clan group took off on their swords with Wei Wuxian in tow. The town and the remote mountain gradually grew farther and farther away. Even if Jiangshen descends the mountain, he won't find me, Wei Wuxian thought. Why are they flying so high in the air? To throw me to my death from the clouds? After flying for some time, a black mountain suddenly broke through the layers of snow-white clouds. It was wrapped in an ominous, deadly aura, as if it were a gargantuan, 1,000-year-old corpse. Even laying eyes on it from far away struck terror into one's heart. Wen Chao stopped over this mountain. Wei, do you know what this place is? He laughed cruelly. This place is called the Burial Mounds. The name caused a chill to creep up Wei Wuxian's spine. Wen Chao continued. Burial Mound is right in Yiling. You human people have probably heard of its name as well. It's a mountain of corpses, an old battleground. If you find a spot wherever on the mountain and dig your shovel into it, you'll be able to dig out a corpse. Any nameless corpses would be tossed here as well, wrapped in a mat only. The sword array descended slowly, approaching the black peak. Wen Chao. Look at the dark air. The hostile energy is strong, isn't it? And the resentful energy is thick, isn't it? Even us at the one sect won't be able to do anything about it. We could only surround it and prevent people from going in. This is still daytime. At night, Really? Anything can be found in there. When a living person goes in here, both the body and the soul, they cannot return, unable to get out for all of eternity. He grabbed Wei Wuxian's hair. A grotesque grin on his face, he spoke one word at a time. And you won't be able to get out for all of eternity either. As he finished, he threw Wei Wuxian down.